Good evening, everyone. My name is Philip Jones, a Second Chance, and today is our 2022 Home and In-Center Dialysis Conference of the good, the bad, the ugly. And today we're going to talk about a number of things. Today's is the informative from a number of different people, patients, professionals, and so we just want to give you guys some information to be able to take with you, whether you're already in dialysis or you're making a transition or will have to in the future. Just some things that you need to know about whichever type of dialysis you're currently doing or could possibly do in the future. Again, my name is Philip Jones. Next up, I'll have my guest Farrell come up and say a few words.
Hello, everybody. My name is Tafarrell Cook, two-time kidney transplant recipient and founder of Kidney Care Coaches, where we coach people with stage 3 to stage 5 kidney disease. Today is going to be a wonderful show. Like I said, like Phil said, we have great people on here. They got insight, firsthand knowledge about dialysis, the good, the bad, the ugly. We're going to be talking about nutrition, ways to overcome challenges you have on dialysis, and just stay tuned. It's going to be a wonderful show. I'm looking forward to hearing from everybody. Go ahead, Jonathan.
Hey guys, my name is Jonathan Traylor. I'm a kidney transplant recipient, and I'm blessed to be here. I'm the host of Hope with Jonathan, and I look forward to being a part of this great panel of kidney warriors, kidney advocates, and just really appreciate being a part. And shout out to Phil and Tafarrell for putting this together and inviting me to be on this panel, this great panel. Thank you again.
So today, our event is going to be hosted by Erica Nickley. Erica was our first kidney conference that we did in November, and she had some issues that she had to take care of at that time. So we told her then we bring you back, so get ready. So we said it happened. So we just want to definitely say thank you for Erica taking the time today. We appreciate her and her time and dedication to the organ transplant community, and for being with us today. Erica, how are you? Can you hear?
I can hear. Erica, are you on mute? Erica, you might be muted.
I'm muted.
Oh, okay.
I said thank you so much, Philip. I appreciate you all and all of the hard work that you're doing out there in the community. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, no problem at all. Thank you for joining us. So Keith is actually stuck in Buffalo. They had issues. So Erica is going to be our host by herself, which is still going to be great. So Erica, the show is.
Thank you, everyone. Welcome to the 2022 Home and In-Center Dialysis Conference. You're going to have an amazing time today. You're going to hear about physical education. You're going to hear about what to do and not to do when you're on dialysis. You're going to hear about dietary needs and what you need to do with your diet. You're going to hear from so many different fantastic guests today. So stay tuned, get your pen and pad ready so you can take notes and make sure that you're being detailed. This is being recorded, so you can always go back to the live, but please be sure to take detailed notes. I myself, Erica, I am a filmmaker, attorney, and activist. I work in the kidney community by celebrating people just like your panelists. I've been working on a film for the past 12 years following 3 patients with kidney disease that should be out in the fall. And I love to be around all of these wonderful presenters. And I just love to hear all the information. So what I'd love to do without further ado is get started. We have several presenters, but we're going to kick it off with Mr. Jonathan Traylor. He's going to talk to us about home hemodialysis. Mr. Jonathan Traylor, he's a husband, father, and friend. Jonathan survived a near-death experience with kidney failure. He has a passion for all things kidney and now uses his personal story to encourage and to give hope to those that are suffering with kidney disease. He now advocates for organ donation for kidney patients, and he is grateful and blessed to share his messages of hope with others. Because of his experience with kidney disease, he started an online streaming show podcast called Hope with Jonathan. It has reached so many people, had so many phenomenal guests. Without further ado, let's welcome Jonathan Traylor. Jonathan, the mic is yours.
Thanks again, Erica, for that great introduction. And yes, as you guys heard, my name is Jonathan Traylor. I'm now a kidney transplant recipient, and as she was saying in the forward there, that I had experienced a near-death experience in July of 2019, and that was due to type 2 diabetes and hypertension being uncontrolled for many years. And I lived a lifestyle of just doing whatever I wanted and ate what I wanted, and I had no exercise routine. I had no routine of seeing a doctor on a regular basis, and I sort of thought I was immortal, and I was wrong. And that lifestyle ended up landing me flat on my back and in an emergency room. And what I was thought I would have been fighting the flu for a few days. No, it was end stage renal disease. I was at stage 5, and I didn't even know it. And it was one of the most traumatic experiences that I had ever gone through in my life. And without the prayers and support of my family and friends, I wouldn't be sitting here right now talking with you. I was the doctors had came to me later on and said that I was around 30 minutes from death, and my levels were completely out of whack. When I say that, I mean my potassium level was a 9, and which is really, really high. But ultimately, I ended up in my local hospital after having some issues with breathing and things like that. My wife had just begged me for days to get to the emergency room, and ultimately, realized that I couldn't get out of bed. When I tried to get out of bed, I fell on the floor. I had no strength at all. And there was a lot of signs and symptoms looking back that, I had really swollen legs, really swollen ankles, and I was in bad shape. But I didn't know what I was fighting. I literally thought I was fighting the flu virus. I was very nauseated and had chronic fatigue. And I was just in really poor shape. But again, I thought I was fighting the flu. But actually, nope, it was kidney disease. And I didn't realize it, but I was in the final stages of it. I'm telling you, I'm sharing you all this because what I'm supposed to be talking about is home hemodialysis. I'm just trying to get you an idea of how I ended up there. So after I went to my local hospital and they got me there and realized that I was in end stage, kidney failure. They did not have a dialysis machine there at this hospital. So therefore, they put me in a helicopter, stat flighted me to a hospital in San Antonio, and I spent about 2 weeks there. And I got a crash course in dialysis education, kidney disease education, renal diet education, and a lot of different terms and terminology were coming at me and flying at me. And at the whole time, I was trying to understand all the medical terminology that they were talking about. I was dealing with the fact of what had just happened to me. And so it was a scene out of your favorite sitcom, your favorite movie, a medical sitcom, if you will, ER, Grey's Anatomy, whatever, what have you. I lived it. I experienced it. And it was a very life-altering, life-changing event that was my eyes were wide open, so to speak. And for about 2 weeks, I was at the hospital there in San Antonio. And at the amazement of the nurses and doctors, I actually survived that experience. And they had prepared my family for like 3 or 4 days that I wasn't going to pull through, but God had other plans for me. And he began to work with the prayers of my family and support of my friends. And the medical staff there was amazing, incredible. With God-given abilities, they were able to save me with dialysis. And I did in-center dialysis there at the hospital for the first 2 weeks. And then when they finally got me into a chair time at DaVita here in my local city. I did in-center dialysis for about 10 months at a local DaVita. And let me just say this: not everyone's story is the same. Every one of our stories is unique, and we all have our own stories. So I can only share my story, my experience, but not everyone experience with these dialysis centers are the same. But I can tell you that my local DaVita was great, and they would answer any question that I had. And I was really blessed to have a great staff, a lot of seasoned veteran technicians at this local DaVita here in Kerrville, Texas. And I began to go into in center, and I was still a very sick man. But they began to administer hemodialysis. So, of course, when I left the hospital, I had no choice. Of course, when I showed up in an emergency situation, there was no time to talk about modality choices. I was basically forced to do the central line in my chest. So it started off with like an IJ in my neck, and they converted that to a permacath. And then I left the hospital with that, and then that's how they administer the hemodialysis in center for probably about 3 or 4 months. And then they kept telling me, they wanted me to get a fistula installed, and and so I ended up getting that a few months later here on my left wrist. And they began to administer dialysis through that fistula probably around 6 weeks later. And they had some great treatments, the first 3. And then they told me I could go get my my central line taken out. And then, of course, I come back, and they let me know that they were having trouble sticking me after those first 3, and I'd already taken out the central line. So I did have a couple of little bumps in the road here and there that a lot of patients have with problems with finding the fistula because it wasn't mature enough, and infiltration and things like that. And but eventually the fistula matured enough, and actually my vascular surgeon came over with the vein mapping machine and showed them where to stick me. My fistula is sort of like the a shape of a candy cane. It's just the way that it kind of looks, and they were having sort of trouble finding it. But once they figured it out, I was in good shape, and so I did in-center dialysis for around 10 months. And then I progressed to finally they came to me and said, "We think you'd be a great candidate for home dialysis." And part of the reason of that was because I had asked so many questions. I was so engaged with my team there. I began to ask questions, do research on Google, begin to just kind of self-educate myself. And then also my staff there at DaVita, they were willing to talk with me and educate me on what the parts of the machine do, and what how the program runs on the machine, and what they were what this hose and line was for, and what the dialyzer actually does, and all this stuff. And I started asking a lot of questions right away because I was just that type of patient. And I learned so much. I think I was actually getting to a point that I was getting on their nerves, so to speak. So they came to me and said, "Hey, we think you'd be a great candidate for home hemodialysis. What do you think?" And I said, "Well, sure. Let me take a look." So they hand me a pamphlet, and I go home, and I show my wife, and they wouldn't let me do it by myself. They said I needed a care partner. This is just the way my facility did. I know a lot of people, a lot of warriors, they stick themselves and all of that, and that's amazing. Shout out to those that can do that. But my team was like, "No, you need a care partner." So my wife, I came home, I talked it over with my wife. I showed her some videos on by way of YouTube, and she believed that she could help me, and she signed on with me, and we started probably around the month of May in 2020, and we started training, and we did training for probably around 3 weeks of home hemodialysis training, and to my surprise, my wife was sticking me by the 3rd day of training. They actually showed her the first couple of days how to do it, and then by the 3rd day, they had her hands on and actually sticking me with the needles. My wife had never done anything like that before, but so shout out to my wife, Melissa. She's amazing, and she jumped right in, rolled her sleeves up, and began to stick me, and she picked up on it really quickly. And with about 3 weeks of all this great hands-on training that we received at our local DaVita, I came home and started doing dialysis at home. And true story, we had actually gone over return of blood in case of an emergency. So like if the power goes out or any of that. So we had went over that a couple of times during our training. And I believe in our first week or first 2 weeks of training, we had to do an emergency return of blood 2 times during that first 2 weeks of administering home hemodialysis. And my wife was a trooper. She went right into everything that they trained her. She knew the steps. She knew exactly. We didn't have to pick up the phone. We didn't panic or call 911 or any of that. My wife just went right into the mode of everything that we covered in the training that we received, and we were able to get through that with the emergency return of blood. And so it was definitely we got tested a few times. Went through a couple of machines. I had some machines that were faulty. My first 2 machines had some problems, mechanical problems. But shout out to Next Stage. They always delivered me another machine within 24 hours. So I never missed a treatment. Never missed a treatment. But my first delivery, if you guys are wondering about that and how that goes, I had my first delivery. It was around 74 boxes. And so it was a lot of boxes. I was amazed at the amount of boxes that I had received to do home hemodialysis. I was thinking it was going to be around 40, but no, it was like 74. And I had boxes going down the hallway. I have a closet that I dedicate to all my supplies and things like that. And if you're wondering about all the steps and all that and everything that we learned during home hemo, I will tell you that sterilization was one of the major keys to being successful with home hemo, and organization. Organization is huge when you're doing home dialysis, and so being sterile and clean, and then being able to stay organized are huge factors in doing home dialysis. And the way that we did that was by, we bought like tubs, and we put labels on the tubs, and we knew exactly where everything was. And I also had bought a cart that I had the machine on with supplies and things like that. So, but other than that, guys, home hemo was awesome for me. It was a great experience. It got me out of in-center dialysis, and one of the major reasons why I wanted to get out of in-center was because I had actually was like at the peak of COVID, things like that were going on, and it was really a time for me that I really needed to get into home hemodialysis, and I really felt like it was a great opportunity because of COVID and things like that. So that was one of the main factors of why I wanted to switch to home hemo, but also I wanted to do dialysis on a schedule that pertained to like my lifestyle, because I feel like I was sort of becoming institutionalized, stuck on like the Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday routine. So I was able to, do dialysis anytime that I wanted by going on home hemodialysis. And in no way, shape, or form am I knocking in-center dialysis, because it was great to me for a time and period that I needed it. And I still believe in in-center dialysis. But, some patients, got to do what they got to do. And I felt like that was the best option for me. So I progressed to home hemodialysis, and believe it or not, guys, I did that for around 3 months, and then I got the call for transplant. So after we learned all that information and learned how to work the machine and learned all the alarms and learned how to set up the machine and getting organized, I was blessed to get the call for transplant. And so I was very blessed, a very blessed patient sitting here that was, called. I'm an old kidney, so I was on the wait list. I was told 6 to 8 years was probably going to be the wait.
Wow.
And but God blessed me with a miracle. And my story is kind of unique. I don't want to share. I won't share the complete story, but I was direct donated to by a friend of the family that had passed away. And so I have their son's kidney. and that's a whole story for another time. But I truly believe that God had a plan for me. I survived a near-death experience, and then ended up getting a friend of the family's kidney. So, you can't really make this stuff up. It was definitely handwritten by the hand of the Lord. But guys, listen. My name is Jonathan Traylor. I really appreciate the opportunity for you to listen to me. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask me.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. That was an amazing story. I really would love to say I've heard your story before, but every time I hear it, it really just touches my heart. Before you go, Jonathan, let me just say we're here to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Hmm.
Besides those 74 boxes and finding a place to keep them, what were some of the other challenges you had with the home dialysis process?
Some of the challenges I would think would be pertaining to deliveries. So I had to coordinate my delivery with a company in San Antonio. It wasn't a local company. So I had a little bit of problem sometime with delivery times. And one day I remember it was a delivery day, and the delivery didn't show. And then like the next day I woke up and there was about 70 boxes sitting outside at the door. And so I was like, okay. So sometimes the delivery was a little bit off. So I had a little bit of problem, and it was like a third party. So to get a hold of someone to fix it was a little bit tough. That they, I guess my local DaVita had a third party that they were kind of working with. So that was kind of one of the obstacles that I had. I will say also that the boxes were quite heavy for someone that was sort of weak and puny at the time, still on dialysis, not in the greatest of shape. So had I not had my son here, or someone to kind of help me lift some of the boxes, as you know, dialysis inside the box is quite heavy, or they weigh quite a bit. So sometimes it was a little bit of a struggle. I had to, lift about 4 or 5, and I'd have to stop and then come back and get the rest of them, and do that. And it was my daily. I got my exercise in for that day for sure. So.
Wow. And I heard you say at the beginning that if you didn't have a home caregiver, you wouldn't be able to go on home dialysis. Can you tell us just a little bit more about, and with all of the physical activity, so people who don't have a caregiver at home, they do not qualify for home dialysis? Is that correct?
No, that's not really true. I mean, there are people out there that are on home dialysis and they do all of it themselves. It was just my local center was like, we really feel like it would be better for you to have a caretaker or a caregiver or care partner. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I did things. I helped set up and prime the machine. I got all the boxes cut open and got the bags out and of dialysate and things like that. So I was involved. So, but yeah, no, not that's not exactly true. I mean, there are patients out there that do it all.
Wow, and that's a phenomenal feat to get through.
Mhm.
Thank you, Jonathan, for your time. And I don't if any of the other guests would love to ask Jonathan a question. Otherwise, we can move on to our next presenter. Is there anyone that would like to come off their mic and ask Jonathan a question?
I would. How do I? I would like to ask a question. Can you?
Absolutely.
You were this is because I never done the home and I know in center you run 3 days a week
Hmm.
and whatever the hours. But when you're at home, or is it still 3 days a week, or is it you can run every day, less time, or how does that? Is it your own discretion of your run time, and when do you run? I know how did that work for you?
It's all based upon your labs and your KT over V. And so if you're getting good clearance with 3 or 4 days, then you're good to go. But if not, then they're going to want you to do more. I had to do 5 days a week, but my run time was only about 2 hours, 2.5 hours versus 4 hours on the machine. So the way they kind of looked at it was more treatments, less time on the machine, and I felt good about it. I really did because I felt like I was getting my blood cleansed really well, and I felt incredible. I mean, I really did. I had a lot more strength than what I did whenever I was in center.
Okay.
So,
Thanks.
great,
Man.
great question. Great question.
Fantastic. Well, let's move right along to our next presenter. Thank you, Jonathan. I know you'll
No
be
problem.
here
Absolutely.
until the end of the conference. So if anyone has any other questions for Jonathan, we can maybe circle back at the end. So please, if you have any questions, put them in the chat. We'll be checking the chat periodically to see if there are any questions. So please put your questions in the chat. And if not, we'll go on to our next presenter. Our next presenter is Tafaro Cook of Kidney Care Coaches. You saw him briefly in the beginning. And now he'll be talking about manual peritoneal dialysis and in-center hemodialysis. Tafaro, the mic is yours.
Hey everybody, how you doing tonight? So I'm gonna pull up a screen. Hopefully this will work out all right. Hold on, let me.
I have it if you want me to bring it up.
Yes, if you could bring it up, that'd be great. Thank you.
Which one?
Let's talk about manual dialysis first. I'm just gonna give you a little background on my manual dialysis. I did manual dialysis for 6.5 years. It was a little challenge, but I seem to do it really well. And I just want to give you a brief on what it is and about it. For 6.5 years, I could tell you a lot of stories, but I know we're on a time schedule, so I'll just keep it brief.
Hold on one second. Mr. Cook. Should be up there now.
Am I blurry? Is this what they said? Okay. Can you roll it up a little bit so I can start reading?
Hold on one second. Trying to see if there's a. This way is fine. Let's see. So the biggest is gonna get.
If that doesn't work,
wait, my bad. Hold on.
If you could just bring it up a little bit so I can show people the diagrams and things like that. Okay. Well, right here, this is a small little picture of how manual dialysis works. So manual dialysis works where you have a membrane in your stomach. And so what they do is they put you have a solution in the bags, because I can't read if you could, can you roll it up a little bit more, Phil, so I can?
That's how big the picture came.
I know that, but I'm talking about the words. I wanted if you can scroll up.
You see, I don't think it can get bigger, but we could try.
It's not bigger if you could scroll up on it, because it's.
Oh, this is the whole slide. The whole slide is in the frame.
Okay. Well, I'm just going to explain then. So manual dialysis, again, we can't see what's going on, so I'll just tell you. So you have bags. You just like Jonathan said, they deliver a lot of bags to you right to your home, and with these bags, you hook them up you have a poet, and you hook them up. First things first, you have to have a sterile environment. And I might miss some things, so correct me if I'm wrong and stuff, but you have to have a sterile environment. So what I did was I had a room in my house that was pretty sterile, and I used that room. I also had a room in my fitness center that I did between my clients. So I would I would have supplies in my fitness center, and I would have supplies at my home. And that's where I did my dialysis. So again, you have a membrane in your stomach. And what you do is you fill this membrane up with this solution. The solution is dialysate, kind of like a dextrose. It's a sugary substance. You put it in. What happens is all your blood is running through there at one time or another. So that's what happens. And all the blood goes in there, when the blood goes through there, and that's when it cleanses the toxins from it. And that's how you do your peritoneal dialysis. You also have a dwell time. So my dwell time was, when I first started doing it, I started doing it 4 times a day. But then all of a sudden, I wasn't getting the proper clearance, so I had to do it 5 times a day. And so my dwell time was probably like 3.5 to 4 hours. So every 4 hours, I would have to go and do another dialysis, a manual dialysis treatment. And so what I did was, and since you can't see it, I always kept a supplies of masks, gloves, betadine, and new caps, because you always had to put a new cap on your exit site all the time. And so I would do my treatment. My treatment lasted about 45 minutes to an hour. That's what it would last. And so I would do these treatments 5 times a day. And what we used was different color bags sometimes. So when you used the green bag was a neutral bag. A yellow bag was less than neutral, where it gave you a little bit more fluid if you were dehydrated. And then you had a red bag, and those red bags would take the fluid off your body. They could also dehydrate you pretty bad also. The biggest thing you had to watch out for in manual dialysis was peritonitis. Now, I got peritonitis out of 6.5 years. I got peritonitis 3 times.
Wow.
And every time I got it, it left me in the hospital for about a week or 2 every time. But my doctors always said that was pretty good, just getting it 3 times out of 6.5 years of doing peritoneal dialysis, which was, oh, go ahead and change the slide. Yeah, if you can. I didn't know. This is where we can read where I'm talking about. It says you have a peritoneum dialysis, a type which uses the peritoneum in a person's abdomen as the membrane through which the fluid and the dissolved substance are exchanged with the blood. It is used to remove excess fluid, correct electrolytes problems, and remove toxins in those with kidney failure. And another thing, this is talking about the training right here. So I had to go to Ohio State University a couple times, and they taught me how to do it. And they teach you it took about 2 weeks for the treatment for you to learn and everything. And the biggest thing they stressed was peritonitis. You don't want to get peritonitis. And the pain of peritonitis, I can really, really understand why they said they don't want you to get peritonitis, because it is very, very painful. I became really, really good at this dialysis treatment. I got so good at peritoneal dialysis that I could go to car shows and everything, and I would do it even in the car. And, and I was pretty good at it and everything. But what happened to me at the end of it was my KT over V wasn't getting any better. And so I wasn't getting the best dialysis adequacy. What happened then was they started giving me 3,000 size bags, and the bags were big. And that's when my peritoneal sac had burst on my side, and I got sepsis, and I had to stay in the hospital close to 40 days, and I got really, really sick. And that's a whole nother story with that. But one thing I did with the dialysis was they always warned us about having oh man, I can't think of the word. What's the thing in your stomach? I can't even think of the word right now. I'm coming up with a blank.
Catheter?
Because no, not a catheter, but when your stomach, a hernia. I'm sorry, a hernia. They always warned us about a hernia. So what I did was, when I would work out and everything, and I still lifted pretty heavy because I was young and everything, I just kept my core real tight when I had that solution in it, because I had to be careful with that. But I always did that, and I never got a hernia, and I kept my core real tight when I exercised. But that was another worry they had. So that's where I'm going to stop at with manual dialysis. I can go on and on forever about it, but I know we're short on time, so I'll just stop right there. Does anybody have any questions about manual dialysis?
Hey, Tafaro, yes, we have a question in the chat. There was a question from P. Teach. P. Teach wanted to know what causes peritonitis.
What caused peritonitis for me was I got it, like I said, I got it 3 times. One time I got it in the summer, and I was doing an exchange, and the window was open, and when I did the exchange, my catheter got contaminated, and that's what happened. And so after that, that's when I got peritonitis. And you can catch it any kind of way, and it's kind of like if you don't have a sterile environment, and that's what happened. He said I didn't have a sterile environment. The second time I got it was when I was at the hospital, and a nurse, she's doing my line, and she looks at what I have and everything, and she has all the equipment. She's about to do the exchange. And once she looked at it, once she opened my catheter up and put a cap on, she found out that she had the wrong equipment. So right after she had the wrong equipment, it was too late, and I got peritonitis right then in the hospital. She apologized and everything, but I had to go through the pain, and it was 2 weeks. It crushed me. The third time is when my peritoneal sac burst, and that's when I got it. But that's what peritonitis is. It's an infection to the peritoneum in the membrane in your stomach, and it is very, very painful. And you get it by not being sterile and not being in a sterile environment. So that's what happened to me. That's what it is.
Thank you, Tafaro. We're good on the questions in the chat. If you'd like to move on to in-center hemodialysis.
Yep. Okay. So I did in-center hemodialysis for 5.5 years. And again, Phil, can you bring that slide up? Because I just want to show people the good, bad, and the pros and cons of it. Okay, thank you. Yes, go to the next slide, please.
Hold on 1 second.
Hemodialysis is a procedure where a dialysis machine and a specialized filter called an artificial kidney or dialyzers are used to clean your blood. Now, let me tell you, when I first started doing hemo, like I said, this was a long time ago. This is when we were using, you had to use your same dialyzer, and they would clean them and they would give them right back to you and use them. Nowadays, they don't do that. Nowadays, they give you a fresh one every time. So that's what they did. Can you go to the next slide? Now, this is a good question right here, and this is a good information right here. The surgeon has to make an access. Most of the time in your arm, you will have a fistula, a graft, or a central venous catheter, which is called a CVC. So when I first started, I had a CVC in my chest, and I'm gonna keep it real. I was afraid to get a fistula because I saw how they looked, and I didn't want it at all. But eventually, I had to get one because I kept on getting the infection in my central venous catheter. And when you get an infection, it infects your heart, and it makes you feel really, really bad. And so they was giving me medicine and everything, and they told me you have to get a fistula. So I went to get a fistula. What was crazy about getting a fistula was I got 12 surgeries in my arm just to get my fistula working. And so first they tried near my wrist, then they tried at the elbow area, then they tried up high in my arm. So the last one, just like Jonathan said, they came in and they mapped my arm. They found out where the good veins is and the arteries and stuff. And I thought I had good veins because I always exercise. But again, this is a different situation when you're trying to get a fistula. So they eventually gave me a fistula. And what was crazy was the doctor, he told me, he gave me a small little ball right after they put the fistula in. He said, I want you to squeeze this ball, and this is going to make more blood in your line. And that way it'll mature faster. Me having a fitness studio and everything, I thought, well, the best way to have blood flow through it is take a dumbbell. So I took about a 15, 20-pound dumbbell, and I would just do curls with my arm. And it matured in 3.5 weeks. I go back to the doctor, and he's like, I've never seen a fistula, mature that fast. And I was like, yeah, it works. I mean, it's drilling and everything. And they start using it in 4 weeks. And once I started running, I ran at 500. Then I started running at 600 on the machine all the time, consistently for 4.5 hours. My fistula was really, really good. And that's when Ohio State came and did a documentary on my fistula, because they was like, we want to show people the quality fistula you have, and show the exercises and the things you can do when you have a fistula. Because when you have a central venous line, you can't go swimming. You got to be careful when you take a shower and things like that. And you can't run as high on the machine to give you better dialysis adequacy. And so that's what happened with me. Go to the next one, Phil. Yep. Okay. So most people do dialysis 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or some people do it Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturdays. For each 4 hours of time. I was a bigger guy, so I had to do 4.5 hours. The pros and cons of this, can you go to the next one, Phil? Now this is a pro right here. These are some of the things. When you have a lot of fluid on your body from like a 3-day weekend or 2-day weekend, when you went to a party or something like that, or you might have went to a barbecue, dialysis can make you feel better because it's getting all that fluid off of you. It's getting the toxins off of you and things like that. It can make you feel really, really better. It also can make you feel tired if you have a lot of fluid on you and toxins, and you ran your treatment. So it's either way. You know what I'm saying? These things can happen. It can make you feel better at times. Other times when you got a whole lot of fluid on your body, I've seen people come in with like 6 or 7 kilos on their body, and they try to take them down to their dry weight. The dry weight is a weight where you come in and that's the actual weight you weigh without having any extra fluid on your body. And sometimes they try to reach that dry weight, and when you do reach it, it can dehydrate you, it can make you cramp up, and it can also make you very, very tired after you do dialysis. And what was crazy for me was I had to always watch my nutrition and fluid, because I had to train clients right after I got done with my dialysis. So I would be, scheduling my clients because I wanted my fistula to stop bleeding. And I'll be calling my clients like, hey, I'm going to be half an hour late, to the gym. But I always made it on time, or I always, talk to them before and everything, because again, sometimes when you have these fistulas and things, sometimes it doesn't stop bleeding. They can give you too much heparin. That could be an ugly. I remember one time on hemo where I was on my way to my gym and my arm broke open, and I had to go back to the dialysis center so they could stop it and everything. So these are some of the good, bad, and ugly things. Go ahead, Phil. Give me the next slide. This is some of the good right here. You do get days off treatment because you only got to go 3 times a week, and that's a good thing. Some people don't want to do it every day. I heard people say, I don't want to do peritoneal because you got to do it every day and so many times, or cycle, or you got to do it every night. So that could be. You don't need to be trained to do in-center hemodialysis. That's a good thing. Also, you don't have to, be trained on it. You can just go there and they just do it for you. A lot of people feel comfortable with them too. You have dialysis nurses and dialysis techs to oversee you if anything goes wrong. And a lot of people like that comfort. That's why they stay in center. And what's crazy about that is, I always talk to people about going home and doing their own dialysis, but a lot of people feel comfortable when they got the dialysis nurses there and the techs. So that can be, a good thing. Let's go to the next slide, Phil. This is some of the ugly right here. If you have a fistula or graft, you have needles in your arm for the entire treatment. Now, a lot of times people don't like to have needles in their arms. I had the biggest gauge needles, and I self-cannulated. Excuse me. I self-cannulated. I learned how to do it myself when I was on hemodialysis, and I didn't have any problems with it. But again, a lot of people are afraid of needles, and they don't want needles in their arms for 4.5 hours or 4 hours, and I understand that. You can also have muscle cramps while on the machine, and your blood pressure can drop while doing treatment. And I've seen this happen too, where all of a sudden somebody cramps up. I've cramped up. I've worked out hard and then go to dialysis the next day and cramp up my hamstring, glutes, my abs, something cramps up real hard. And they got to give you all your fluid back and things like that. So that's some of the ugly. Also, your blood pressure can just crash. And when you see this happens, it's kind of eerie if you're in a center, because they have to fold the person back, throw them back, and try to get blood back to their heart and their brain and everything. And it's kind of it's kind of crazy when you see that happen. So that could be a little challenge also. Go to the next one, Phil. Thank you. Does anybody have any other questions?
Tafaro, I don't see any. Well, yes, we have one from Charles Rice. How long were you on dialysis, Tafaro?
When I look at the whole time, I did 6.5 years of peritoneal, and I did 5.5 years of hemo before I got my second transplant. So close to 11, almost 12 years, somewhere on there. I always say just a decade because I can't remember everything, but over a decade, I'll say.
Okay, thank you, Tafaro. We have one more question from Mr. Charles Rice. He wants to know, does your fistula still work?
My fistula stopped working about 3 years into my second transplant, and the doctors were happy. They were like, we wanted it to stop because, you know, it can keep your heart revving up while you're on, if you're not doing dialysis and things like that. So eventually it clotted off and it's not working, Charles. Thank you for the question, though.
Okay, thank you kindly. What we'll do, we'll keep on with the program. Our next presenter is Philip Jones, and he's going to discuss cycloperitoneal dialysis. Philip Jones is a kidney transplant recipient who has battled chronic kidney disease for over 2 decades. At age 4, Philip had strep throat, which attacked his kidneys and caused him to fail and fall to 30% of functionality. At age 17, Philip received a life-saving transplant. 3 years after that, kidney rejected and caused him to face a number of other illnesses and have to go on dialysis. After facing a number of other health challenges, still on dialysis, Philip decided to go back to school and get his degree on March 1st of 2021. In March 1st of 2021, Philip started a Second Chance podcast. Second Chance podcast highlights the story of courageous individuals and their stories and trials and tribulations with kidney disease. So please, let's welcome Philip to the stage. The mic is yours, Philip.
Thank you, Erica. Appreciate you. Today, I'm just gonna go over a number of things that have to do with the cycler part of peritoneal dialysis. You saw Mr. Cook elaborate on some things that have to do with the angle side to peritoneal dialysis. So the difference, as you can see, is that here the cycler, with what Mr. Cook went over earlier, is being done by yourself by hand, connecting to bags, doing a number of these cycles throughout the day. Most people, start about 3, maybe 4 or 5 sessions throughout the day. Mr. Cook, how many sessions did you do throughout the day while you were on manual?
So at first I started at 4, and then they said I wasn't getting quite good dialysis adequacy. Then I had to do 5 treatments a day with 3,000 milligram, 3,000 cc, 1,000 bags, and those bags were big. So that's what I did.
Awesome, thank you for that. So to start off with this, 1 second. So the overview: peritoneal dialysis is a way to products from your blood when your kidneys can't adequately do the job any longer. This procedure filters the blood in a different way than does the more common blood filtering procedure called hemodialysis, which we just went over with Mr. Cook and Mr. Traylor as well, and the different types of hemodialysis that you can go through as a patient. During peritoneal dialysis, a cleaning fluid, I'm sorry, I keep getting these messages. A cleaning fluid flows through a tube, which is your catheter, into a part of your abdomen, which is your peritoneum. The lining of your abdomen, again, peritoneum, acts as a filter and removes waste products from your blood. After a set period of time, the fluid with the filtered waste products flows out of your abdomen and it just is placed into basically a drain bag or a bucket or with whatever you have that it drains into when you do your draining session. These treatments can be done at home, can be done at work, or while traveling. But yes, while traveling, if you RV a lot or do a lot of traveling things of that nature, you can still do peritoneal cyclic dialysis. I believe Jonathan Traylor knows someone who does who travels while doing their peritoneal dialysis. I don't know the name of heart, but they do it on a daily basis, which is actually cool to me. But peritoneal dialysis is an option for everyone with kidney failure. You need manual divinity and ability to care for yourself at home, or you need a reliable caregiver. So your caregiver is very important in what we do as dialysis patients because we need that help, whether dialysis patient um, as well as transplant patients as well. Give me 1 second. So the next slide is reasons for starting peritoneal dialysis. You need dialysis to be longer function well enough. Kidney damage generally progresses over a number of years as a result of long-term conditions, such as diabetes, high blood pressure, which is the two leading causes of kidney failure, kidney inflammation, glomerulonephritis, um, multiple cysts in the kidneys, known as polycystic kidney disease, which is also one of the top reasons why people have kidney failure and genetic. On to the next slide. Trying not to stay up here too long. The benefits of peritoneal dialysis compared with hemodialysis. The greater lifestyle flexibility and independence. With peritoneal dialysis, you do this at night, so you pretty much have the day to do whatever it is that need to get done throughout the day. Shopping, whether clothes shop, grocery shopping, anything like that, things to do around the house that you need to get done. Any of those things, it gives you a lot of independence and being, again, like you said, being able to travel, things of that nature, like that. These can be especially important if you work, travel, or live from a hemodialysis center. But the one thing that is also known is that not all hemodialysis centers have home programs in order for you to make that transition. So sometimes you have to do some deep digging to find a dialysis unit, or hopefully your medical facility has that home hemo program attached to their facilities in order for you to have that happen. A less restricted diet. Yes and no. Lindsay's going to touch on the diet side of that a little later on, I think right after me, actually. Peritoneal dialysis is done more continuously than hemodialysis because peritoneal dialysis is something that's done every night. usually for about 8, 9, for some 10 hours, depending on your condition and functioning of your kidneys, if you have any functioning kidneys, resulting in less accumulation of potassium, sodium, and fluid. That does not mean that you don't have to watch what you eat. You still have to pay attention to these things. This follows you to have more flexible diet than you could have on hemodialysis. True again, but still kind of pay attention to these things that you're putting in your body. Longer lasting resilient function. People who use peritoneal dialysis retain kidney function slightly longer than people who use hemodialysis. I've heard this to be true by a number of nephrologists. Never really kind of seen it with patients in the difference. So I'll leave that where it is. Let me see. Factors to consider when deciding a type of dialysis. What's your kidney function? Your overall health, your personal preferences, your home situation, and then there's one more, your lifestyle. So all that comes into play is very important, especially your home situation, because the first thing that they want to see is if you have a room that's sterile enough to be able to provide and hold and sustain peritoneal dialysis for you on the cycle. Sorry for that background noise. As well as manual dialysis as well. Mr. Cook touched on this earlier about being sterile and things of that nature. It's a very important component to being on home dialysis. Is the nature of being sterile, your room or wherever you do your dialysis is clean consistently. Very, very important. See, next slide. Reasons why PD would be for you. Can't tolerate the rapid changes of fluid balance associated with hemodialysis. You may want to minimize the disruption of your daily activities. Again, like I said, gives you a lot of independence to be on home dialysis or peritoneal cycler dialysis. You want to work or travel more easily or at all, period. A lot of people, most people can't really work or anything like that while they're on hemodialysis because it takes so much energy out of the system where they can't really function too much. First thing they want to do when they get home is eat and go to sleep or go straight to sleep. So have some residual kidney function. Again, like I said before, hold on to that kidney function a little bit more doing peritoneal dialysis than hemodialysis. Reason why PD might not be for you. Extensive surgical scars in your abdomen, which means a lot of scar tissue that is involved in that. A lot of cutting in those areas, especially if you have it more than once. Like myself, I actually had to have my catheter placed. This was my third time. It was the first time I did PD. It also was placed the original time I was going to go back after I actually lost that first kidney and was going to make that transition from in-center hemodialysis to back to cycler peritoneal dialysis, but could not do it at that time. So they had to take it out, and then it was placed again once everything was put back in place and was ready for me to make that transition. So it is a lot of scarring going on in there. They even mentioned it recently going through appointments for future transplant. You see a large area of weakened abdominal muscle, hernia, like Mr. Cook mentioned hernia earlier in his presentation. Limited ability to take care of yourself or a lack of caregiving support. Again, like I mentioned before, caregiving is very important, not only for us as dialysis patients, but you as a transplant patient as well. So if you have caregiving problems now as being on dialysis, then more than likely you don't have problems with being a transplant patient as well. So it's best to get those things sorted out ahead of time. Um, Inflammatory bowel disease or frequent bouts of diverticulitis. I've heard a number of stories about diverticulitis, and it's not something that I want to deal with. I barely want to deal with peritonitis. And for anybody else that's on this call that's dealt with it, or any of the professionals that have had conversations, it's not a pretty sight to deal with, peritonitis. This is my last slide. So while you may be denied for a cycler PD, not manual, there are a number of reasons why that you can be denied for this. Now, this is considered a mixture of bad and ugly. You may not necessarily have the exact room that they are looking for you to do cycler peritoneal dialysis, where you need to have consistent, space, and be able to do these constant cycles of dialysis at night, right? Again, it's the big thing about that is being still. Being still is very important, and is the number one thing on their list when it comes to peritoneal dialysis. Now, the thing about getting the okay for manual, which is, I mean, because you could do this in the bathroom if you want to. You got to clean up bathroom, and you are what's what I'm looking for, and you can function in a space like that to where you make sure, your catheter doesn't fall out your hand and bang the wall or bang the counter, drop your mini caps and things of that nature like that. Then by all means, if that's easy for you, you can do it that way. Then they'll give you an okay to do manual, and that's what your order is, manual bags, as opposed to using a cycler, where you need more room to do a cycler. So thanks, Erica. So definitely, I'm done. That is, the good, the bad, the ugly. Hope it was informative to you all. Erica, if there's any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them.
Thank you, Philip. At this moment, I don't see any questions in the chat, but just a few points of clarification. So it's possible to do both hemodialysis and peritoneal dialysis at home, correct?
Yes, it is possible to do home peritoneal and hemodialysis. It is a different type of dialysis, and the machines work differently, but it is possible, yes.
Okay, great. And with the peritoneal at home, is it the same situation with the number of boxes and the type of sterile environment? Is that all the same as with hemo?
To put the word a lot of boxes with it, yes. When it comes to number, I am not quite sure. I only have done peritoneal, home peritoneal dialysis. I did manual for a quick second, but when it comes to the boxes, you can get them. I don't know if this is the same thing. Jonathan can touch on this, but I know that you get them in time, every week, every 2 weeks, every month. Time ranges of that. Alex, which was on here, actually I didn't even know, is a current PD patient as well, and he says he usually gets 30 to 40 boxes in a month. I actually get about 25. I get mine about every 2 weeks, but that also depends on, because I'm usually pretty ahead with my boxes and how I order them. So Usually I'm ahead of the game, so I usually have really enough for a month at kind of any one. Sometimes, I might have been in a hospital or things of that nature. I missed the date to order my boxes, so I still have enough to get to that next shipment that I need to get to. So again, it can be 20 to 25. If it's a normal time, it could be 10 to 15. But like Alex said, generally 30 to 40 in a month. It also depends on what your uh what's the word I'm looking for? What your treatment is through your dialysis as well. What kind of bags you use, how many bags you use, how you use, or have to look at being taken off and things of that nature. So it's a number of things that go into that, and how many boxes you can get. So it varies. Jonathan, how many boxes did you normally get when you did home hemo?
My apologies. I should have clarified. So the first delivery was 74 boxes. Once I got into a routine of ordering every 2 weeks, I was getting somewhere around like 40 boxes.
Okay.
Hey, Jonathan, if you might correct me if I'm wrong, but did you do home hemo?
Yes, sir.
That's what I thought. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. With PD, to kind of piggyback off what Philip was saying, like I said, I get 30 to 40 boxes a month, and that's how my dialysis center kind of tells us we have to order them monthly, not every 2 weeks, just how it works. But usually they tell us as well in our dialysis center to make sure you have more. So if power was to go out or something was to happen with the cycler issue, or if you have an issue with your cycler, have enough on hand for 3 days is what they tell us, of manual bags. So you also have to make sure you have enough bags for manual in the event something was to happen. You have a power outage, a bad storm, and you can't do your cycler at night, that you then have to do your manual. So it's also important to make sure you have the manual as well, just because you just don't know what's going to happen with the cycler.
That's actually a great point, because that's something that you can't do on hemo. So
Interesting.
if the power goes out, you cannot do hemodialysis at home, because you have to have electric to run the machine. But those of you on peritoneal can do the manual exchanges. So
Right.
that is something to keep in mind.
Did you ever have any issues? If you don't mind me asking, did you have any issues when you did home hemo with having a power outage at all?
Yeah, I covered that at the beginning. I
Okay.
did my first 2 weeks. I had like two power outages. So that training kicked right in. My wife was able to help me out with that and return my blood and all that. So
Good deal. Right. I'm sorry I missed it.
no,
But yeah,
it's okay.
that's awesome. That's cool.
No problem.
Good to see you, by the way, man. Good to see you.
Good to see you too, Alex.
Yeah.
Excellent. Wonderful conversation. I'm so excited to see. Welcome, Alex. This is your
Thank you.
first time on the screen. Welcome, welcome. Alex will be joining us later. He's a panelist later on in the presentation. So, all of our presenters have talked so much about diet and the restrictions and how what you eat can be detrimental to your day and how you're going to behave or how you're going to feel. So, with us today, we have Lindsay Ducharme. She's a dialysis nutrition. Lindsay, welcome. Lindsay is a registered dietitian and board certified renal nutrition specialist. She began working with dialysis patients 7 years ago and grew to love helping others with kidney disease, improve their health through food. She started her own private practice in 2021, which focuses on helping those with early stage CKD maintain kidney function. Welcome to the stage, Lindsay.
Thank you, Erica. So I'm going to share my screen. I have a presentation. Okay. That's the end, actually.
You have to bring it in. So when you click it, it comes up on my end, but so
Can you
have
see
to
my
let
slide?
me bring it in. I did recently see it and it clicked off.
Okay. Can you see it now? Okay, let me go back.
No. Yeah, you might have to bring it back.
Let me
in.
restart it. There we go. How's that?
Okay, hold on one second. Let me bring it in. Hold on one second. Sorry, got it off.
It's okay.
So, okay, it should be there.
All right. So it says it's sharing on my end. Can you see the PowerPoint?
Yeah, I can see it. Can you see it?
Yeah, I see it.
Yes,
Okay.
I see it too.
Great. So my presentation is going to be on including more plants in your renal diet. And we're going to be debunking some renal diet myths. So just a disclaimer, this presentation is for educational purposes only. Each person has unique nutritional needs and should consult with their healthcare team for specific guidance. So as Philip was mentioning, depending on what kind of dialysis you're doing, your needs are going to be different, and it's going to be based on other conditions you may have. So here I have an image of the quote unquote old renal diet. So if you Google renal diet, this is pretty much what it's going to tell you to eat. So it's going to tell you to be including animal protein at every meal, especially chicken, white rice or white bread, small portions of low potassium fruits or vegetables. And here on the other side of the screen, we have the quote unquote new renal diet. Yes.
I'm sorry. For some reason it's not changing on our end.
Oh, that's weird. Okay, so maybe I have to leave it like this. Like, okay. Can you see like
Yes, yeah, we can see it now.
I'll just go like that. So the new renal diet. So this is what research has shown us is actually appropriate for people on dialysis to have. So it encourages more plant proteins such as beans, legumes, nuts, fruits, and vegetables, and it encourages whole grains. So pretend this picture is this is a chickpea salad, and we can say that's a whole grain pita bread, and you have some fresh fruits and vegetables. So why am I talking about the importance of plant foods? So Americans in general don't eat enough fruits and vegetables, and those on dialysis eat even less. So partly because of things they may be reading on the internet, maybe other people are telling them, oh, your potassium's high, you can't eat fruits and vegetables. But unfortunately, that's not always the case. So there was a study that was done, and they surveyed 8,000 people on dialysis. And it showed that on average, they were consuming less than 8 servings of fruits and vegetables per week. So that's about a little over 1 serving of fruit and vegetable per day. And then another study looked at low potassium diet handouts for people on dialysis. And it showed that they primarily restrict fruits and vegetables, while the least common restriction is ultra-processed food. So we're going to go into the ultra-processed food in a little bit. But why is this a problem? So one of the top causes of death for those on dialysis is heart disease. So lower intakes of fruits, vegetables, and plant foods is associated with a higher risk of heart disease. So obviously we want people on dialysis, we want their hearts to be healthy, especially if they're going to go on to get a transplant. Oh, so because I'm not presenting this the right way, I kind of have to move this out of the way. Okay, so which sandwich filling is lower in phosphorus? So we have the peanut butter, and then we have 2 slices of deli turkey. So a lot of people tell me when they first start dialysis, they ask if they can have peanut butter because they read that, you know, it's high in phosphorus. But in reality, it's not. So 2 tablespoons of peanut butter, it's only 116 milligrams of phosphorus compared to the deli turkey, that is 139 milligrams. So for plant proteins, your body only absorbs about 40%. That is because of the form of phosphorus in the plant foods. So in reality, you're only absorbing about 46 milligrams of phosphorus from the peanut butter. And this deli turkey, I have the ingredient list. This is a Jenny O low sodium turkey breast, and it contains an additive in it. So your body absorbs 100% of the phosphorus from additives. So you're going to be absorbing all of this. And I do have a little disclaimer at the bottom. So food companies, they're not required to test for phosphorus. This is the amount based on the average phosphorus content of deli turkey. So I tried to call Jenny O and actually ask them how much phosphorus is in their product. And they told me they don't know because they don't test it. So it can be really scary because this phosphorus amount could be higher. All right, so move that out of the way. So another quick little quiz. So which is lower in potassium? So we have 1 cup of black beans, or we have, again, the same 2 slices of deli turkey. And this was really shocking to me that this brand had 710 milligrams of potassium in only 2 slices of deli turkey. And again, that is because of this potassium additive. So 1 cup of black beans is a lot of beans in general, but if you cut that in half, and you're only getting about 330 milligrams of potassium, that is way less than the deli turkey. So I would say, yes, you can totally have beans on a renal diet. So as you may have guessed, the real problem is the packaged foods and the additives that are in them. So these food additives are used for a variety of reasons. They improve shelf life of the food, flavor, texture, the moisture of the product. So here I have some examples of potassium additives. So potassium phosphate, potassium chloride, potassium lactate. And some phosphorus additives are sodium phosphate, dicalcium phosphate, and phosphoric acid. So unfortunately, there are way more than this for additives. And there's also other sodium additives. So all of these additives, they're really easily absorbed into the body. They can actually double to triple the amount of phosphorus or potassium content of the food. So I have some examples of some foods that commonly have these additives. So a lot of people on dialysis have been told if it's a clear drink, you can have it. So this is a flavored water. And as you can see, there are all kinds of potassium additives, and they have the phosphoric acid in it. So it may not be the best choice. And over here, so even if you're having fresh meat, especially pork and chicken, they can sometimes be injected with different additives. Like this pork has been injected with potassium, sodium phosphate. So you really have to read the package of even your fresh meat to see if it says it's marinated with something or if it's enhanced with something. So it's really important to read the fine print. And then this is really shocking to me that 1 cup of this low sodium chicken noodle soup has 820 milligrams of potassium. So someone on dialysis, they're told to limit their potassium to 2,000 milligrams a day. So if they ate 1 cup of soup, they're almost meeting half of their needs. So again, this is really misleading because it's advertised as a low sodium product, which it is, but what the food companies do, so instead of using sodium chloride, they use potassium salts or potassium chloride. So this gives the flavor of salt, but yet it's going to be lower in sodium and it's going to be high in potassium. So again, if you look at this ingredient list, you're going to see all kinds of additives, the phosphate, and then the potassium salts. So here are some healthy eating strategies for dialysis. So first and foremost, reducing the processed and packaged foods. So this doesn't mean you can't eat something if it's in a can or it's in a package. For instance, I personally prefer canned beans. I don't have the time to soak them And I love frozen vegetables because you don't have to worry about them going bad in the fridge, or the freezer rather. So you always want to check your food labels, even if you think the food is safe, such as a package of food that is labeled low sodium. So to me, that's a red flag. That food may contain a potassium additive. And of course, your fresh meats you want to check, and beverages. So you can try replacing animal protein for plant protein. So instead of chicken salad, try a chickpea salad sandwich. And if you're having a burrito bowl, maybe try like pinto beans rather than ground beef. So you also want to choose plenty of lower potassium fruits and vegetables. I recommend aiming for at least one fruit or vegetable at every meal, and you want to include it at your snack if you can. So here I have some guidelines on what a serving is. So for fruit, it could be one small or medium whole fruit, such as like an apple, or it could be half a cup of fresh or frozen fruit. So like maybe half a cup of blueberries or half a cup of pineapple. And for vegetables, half a cup of fresh or cooked vegetable is a serving. And if you're having something like raw, like lettuce or kale, it would be 1 cup of the raw leafy greens. But of course, if the greens are cooked, it's going to be the half a cup is the serving. So last step, you always want to know what foods are high in potassium. So even if you're doing more plant-based, it's not a good idea to just go out and eat 5 bananas. That's still, I would err on the side of caution. So always ask your dietitian how to safely include the higher potassium foods into your diet. All right, and to summarize, yes, you can safely eat plant protein, fruit, vegetables, and other plant foods if you are on dialysis. Food additives significantly increase phosphorus and potassium content in foods, and they're likely a major culprit of high potassium and phosphorus. And we really need to update educational materials to reflect these food additives and checking processed foods. And of course, work with your renal dietitian to help include your favorite plant foods into your diet. So lastly, if anyone has any questions or would like a copy of my slides, feel free to reach out to me. You can message me on Facebook at Lindsay Nutrition or on Instagram. And these are the references that I used for my slides. Okay.
Thank you so much, Lindsay. That was very informative. I feel like now I've learned so much as well. So tell us real quick before we move on to Safaro's next presentation, how does someone ease into this diet if they've been eating all these preservatives and all of these additives with all of this food? How, when they first get the news that they need to go on dialysis, how do they ease into this diet, or what are some small changes they can make?
So I definitely recommend starting slow. I usually have people look at the beverages first because that could make such a big difference. Like if people are drinking Coke or if they're drinking like vitamin waters that have a lot of these additives, that is something some people can change more easily. And I just try and focus on foods they can have and foods they like, and just trying to work with them to just make their choices a little bit healthier. So it's better to do things gradually rather than jumping into a whole new diet.
Thank you so much, Lindsay. Again, if anyone has questions about her presentation, I'm sure get in touch here and we'll send out your slides to her so she can continue to help educate and get any information you need about your diet. So next we're going to go back.
Lizzie, I had a question. Sorry, Eric. I got one question. Lizzie, do you recommend anybody with CDK, chronic kidney disease, should they become vegan? And what's your thoughts on eggs? That's what I wanted to ask you.
So plant-based diets definitely help preserve your kidney function, but I definitely don't think that people need to go full vegan just because, I grew up eating meat and I do eat a lot of plant-based foods, but I feel like when people try to go full vegan and they're not fully ready to, they're going to just, it's just hard. You just may end up like falling off the rails and not being able to stick with it. So I just prefer like more sustainable changes. And eggs. So there are definitely a lot of benefits for eggs. So, I mean, it really depends on someone's protein needs, but if someone is trying to preserve their kidney function, if they have CKD, I feel like there are benefits to the healthy fats and the vitamins in eggs, like the choline, because that's not found in a lot of different foods. So I think they can be part of a healthy diet for CKD and definitely for dialysis.
But you also recommend though no meat, no red meat at all, like stay away from the period.
I tell people, people that are really big meat and potatoes people, I just say, try and limit the red meat to once a week and see how you do. Because I feel like once they get used to eating other foods, they kind of stop missing it as much. And then maybe they feel like, oh, I can totally do this. I can just have it once a week and I'm satisfied.
What's your thoughts on people with kidneys, though, kidney transplant recipients with meat in their diet? Like, because a lot of times people who have kidney transplants feel like they can just go back to eating what they want. And I tell them still, you still want to watch it a little bit and everything because, things can still happen. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. They definitely don't need to be as strict, but they definitely want to be following just a general healthy diet, especially for their heart health. So I definitely agree with you on that.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Excellent question, Stefaro. And I think that's a great segue because eating and nutrition is so important to maintain your physical activity. And I'm thinking once on dialysis, that's probably the hardest thing to maintain because one of the things you need the most and probably one of the hardest things to maintain. And we're going to welcome Tafaro back to the stage to talk about physical activity. And I'll take this moment to introduce him as I forgot when he did his first presentation. Tafaro Cook is a 2-time kidney transplant survivor who thrived on dialysis for over a decade. While on dialysis, he owned a fitness studio where he personally trained and operated his business. Tafaro started exercise programs in the dialysis unit to help patients stay healthy while waiting on a life-saving organ. He is now the founder of Kidney Care Coaches, where they coach people with stages 3 to 5 kidney disease. Tafaro is married and a father of 2. He enjoys exercising, traveling, reading, and building classic cars. Tafaro, welcome to the stage. The mic is yours.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. I don't have any slides, anything. I just wanted to talk about, exercise with while you're on dialysis. And when I say exercise when you're on dialysis, I'm not talking about anything strenuous. I'm talking about first things first, always ask your doctor and get a recommendation to see what your doctor says. If he says it's okay to do a little bit of exercise and things like that, then go for it. And some of the things I tell people, because, when you're on dialysis, it might be a lot of times the people are a little bit older and things like that. And I tell them, start with just walking. If you can just walk around the block, walk your dog, walk, a pet, walk with a friend, things like that. You can even also, walk around the house if it's cold outside, walk up and down the steps and things like that. You always want to get your body moving and get the blood going because a lot of times when you're on dialysis, a lot of people sit sedentary and they don't do anything. And what can happen when you're sedentary, the bones can get weak because, even on dialysis, you have a challenge where the bones can get weak and your muscles can just atrophy, shrinkage of the muscles. So again, you want to start walking. If that's not too hard, you might want to get some bands, do some exercises with some bands and things like that. You can also use small dumbbells, like 5 to 10 pounds. I recommend people doing things like that. Some of the great exercises you can do are, again, walking, squatting with your own body weight. You can do push-ups. You can do push-ups off your knees, things like that, because you still want to give your body some resistance exercises because you want to keep your body as strong as possible, especially if you're, waiting for a kidney transplant. You know, a lot of times when you go get a kidney transplant, the first thing they do is do a stress test with your heart to see if you're able to get a transplant. And by you walking and doing things like that, that's going to keep your heart going good. And that's a big challenge for a lot of times when people are on dialysis. Another challenge I see with people are, you know, they feel tired all the time because of dialysis. Well, if you exercise, it will give you your energy back. You know, also by exercising and moving the body, you create dopamine in the body. And you know, you get that euphoria where you start feeling good about yourself. And it also gives you, you know, exercise gives you your control back. A lot of times on dialysis, we see people, you know, someone's always telling them something to do. Take this medication, you know, do your dialysis like this, all kinds of stuff. And you feel like you don't have any control of who you are. And by exercising, you get a little control back. You know, you start taking your control back. Like, okay, I'm gonna start, you know, exercising. I'm gonna start getting my control back of who I am. You know, I'm not telling you to be a workout crazy maniac like I was when I was on dialysis. You know, I still worked out hard as, you know, the regular dudes and stuff, but I'm not telling you to do that. But a little couple of dumbbells with some, you know, some shoulder presses, you know, squats, you know, without any weights, even air punches where you're just punching the air, you know, walking up and down the steps. All of these things would be so beneficial for your body. A lot of times when on dialysis, you lose your functionality, and that means your balance, your stability, and things like that. And by you walking and you even a slight jog if possible, you know, do these things and keep the body active. You know, and that's one thing I can say. I don't want to, you know, go into too much detail because of time restraints and things like that, but keep your body active. It'll help with the blood flow in your body, the circulation, and it'll also help you with your mind, because a lot of times when you're on dialysis, we get a lot of brain fog, you know, because the toxins can build up all throughout the body and it can build up in the brain also. So by you exercising and you moving your body, you keep yourself, you know, your cognitive mind, you keep everything kind of fresh and things like that. So that's just a couple of tips I wanted to give people about exercising. If you really wanted to go into details and give you a plan to exercise, you can hit me up at kidneycarecoaches.com, because all the people I work with, I definitely create a workout plan for them that they're going to do some type of exercise. And I have people who are 65 to 70 years old, and I still create a little program for them to exercise. Even amputees, I still create a small little exercise program for them. And again, it's good for your blood pressure, and it's also good for your, if you have diabetes, those things like that. So I just wanted to keep that brief. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Tafaro. And that goes for everyone. I mean, everyone, every single day, the simplest thing we can do is to walk. Just get up and just start walking around your house. You know, there are so many devices now where you can track yourself and challenge yourself each day to do more and more. So thank you, Tafaro, for that. And let's keep the program moving. Now we've heard about nutrition and we've heard about physical activity. We have Dr. Sharika Brookins with us. Dr. Brookins, welcome to the stage. Dr. Brookins is a board-certified nephrologist and internist licensed in Georgia. Dr. Brookins graduated from Meharry Medical College with a doctorate of medicine. She went on to complete her internal medicine residency training in her hometown at UF Health Jacksonville. Please kindly, I'll ask all panelists to mute your mics, please. Thank you. After completing her nephrology fellowship training at Vanderbilt University, she relocated to Augusta, Georgia. She is devoted to community service by educating and empowering others about kidney disease, nutrition, transplantation, and health disparities. Dr. Brookins is the founder and CEO of Remote Renal Care, a telehealth kidney practice providing care to rural Georgia. Dr. Brookins is a published author in medical scientific journals and digital media, and a member of leading medical societies. Thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Brookins. The stage is yours.
Hi, Erica. Thank you. Thank you for having me, everyone. And it's an honor to be on this panel tonight. So I do have a presentation. So let's see. All right, and everyone can see that?
Yeah, hold on 1 second.
You know, I didn't know which order we were going to go in, like if it was me and then the personal stories, but I will say this order is perfect because, you know, getting to hear from Jonathan's story to Philip's story and to Faro's story, it's kind of going to play into these slides on what have we seen with the progression of the different types of dialysis over time. So if you can see my presentation, just let me know if it's like a full presentation or not.
We're good,
Yeah,
doctor.
we can see the slides. Yeah, it's not
Oh, so you
like
can't see
full
it?
screen, but
Okay. Sounds like the same issue Lindsay had then. All right. So
yeah.
again, thank you, Erica. I'm Dr. Brookins, and I am, again, excited to be here on this panel. And so the good, the bad, and the ugly, I'm going to and then I'm also going to talk about how to get a transplant. So for those viewers who are on dialysis and haven't signed up for a transplant, or if you have signed up, but you're kind of still in the process, I'm going to address that process as well. So I'm going to start with showing you, and all of my slides come from USRDS. It's the reference for these slides. And this is the most updated report, which is the 2020 report, and it goes from 2000 to 2018. Can you see my cursor? Okay.
Yes,
Yes, we can see.
Oh, perfect. All right.
Yes.
So as you can see up here is in-center hemo. So this is what Tafaro went over with us, and this is the modality that he chose, or the modality that he was on. And when I say modality, I am speaking of the mode or the type of dialysis. And the main three types we've discussed tonight are going to be home hemodialysis, peritoneal dialysis, and in-center dialysis. And Jonathan did make mention in the comments, there is a fourth type of dialysis, which is called nocturnal dialysis. So it's pretty much in center, but it's at night. So over the years, you can see that the most common form of hemodialysis is in center. And when you come down here, home hemodialysis is actually the least utilized form of dialysis. And then there's peritoneal. And we can also see that over time, there's been a slight increase in peritoneal, which is actually where the organization is trending towards getting more kidney disease patients on home dialysis. And so here I wanted to show also the difference between the race. So if you see, we have white, we have Black, African American, American Indian, Asian, and Native Hawaiian. Again, the most common is in-center hemodialysis, but you will notice that some of the groups are a little bit more when it comes to the utilization of in-center hemodialysis, whereas the gray is peritoneal. And you can see, although they do look fairly similar, the Asian community generally are higher in peritoneal dialysis, as well as the white community. And then up here, you have transplants are considered in this graph as well. And this, I wanted to include this to highlight the importance of knowing what your modality is. And this goes back to Jonathan's story, right? In which it was an unfortunate situation in which when he felt sick, it was when he had to start dialysis. So therefore, he only had the option that was him. So what this graph is showing, these are individuals who their relationship they had before dialysis care. So this column is representing those who only may have been under the care of a nephrologist for 6 months, 6 to 12 months, over 12 months, and not at all. So this, I don't know, Jonathan, if you mentioned that you were in nephrology care, but you can see Here, we have a lot more of those who started under 5% for their GFR. Most of the time, we're recommending you start dialysis when your GFR is under 10, but of course, that is based on your symptoms technically when you should start dialysis. And on average, it's going to be between 5 to 9%, which is the red. And this green, in which people started above 15%, was actually more of the pediatric population. And again, this represents the start of dialysis. Where was their GFR according to race? So the most important ones to look at are the less than 5%. We can see that we had more commonly amongst Blacks starting dialysis for the first time, more so when their GFR is less than 5, but the most common was between 5 to 9%. So I stress these slides to say, know your mode of modality, your choice in which you desire, well before you get to 10% and even 15%. Ideally, that discussion should be finalized when you're in your 4th stage. That's generally when, I really try and make sure my patients have a pinpoint understanding of what their mode of modality is. And now here's the vascular access. So again, speaking to catheter first, with Jonathan's story starting on hemo with a catheter, this is a group of individuals who likely, if they don't have nephrology care, they're going to start with a catheter. Now, the best is a fistula. So we have this saying fistula first. That's ideal because the studies just showed that there was a better performance in mortality, meaning death rate, as well as complications when you have a fistula versus a catheter is the least recommended. However, I will say if you do have to have a catheter, just at least not for a long term is what's recommended. So for individuals who had good nephrology follow-up care over 12 months, they were most likely to have a fistula. So now when you're on dialysis and your doctor sees you every week, or if not once a month, and then they may have a nurse practitioner or PA that follows you once a week, there are certain values that we really look at and, we really hone in on. Out of all of the functions that the kidney provides, there are certain ones that we know through studies and just through longevity studies that can affect the outcome of the individual. So one that's important is albumin. So this column on the left is those with hemodialysis, and the one on the right is peritoneal dialysis. So I show this slide because I want to show you as a pro versus a con. So in peritoneal dialysis, we tend to run more so into problems where the albumin is under ideal, and that's this blue area. You see the blue area is more on the peritoneal side than on the hemo side. We tend to see more of a lower albumin when someone is on peritoneal dialysis, but the ideal value is in this red area. So albumin is important because it's a marker of malnutrition as well as of healing. So like when Tafaro spoke about multiple surgeries on his fistulas, you want to have a good, robust, ideal albumin to help to know and have a better assurance that you will have good healing from any surgical procedures. And so hemoglobin is the next one. Generally, I show this slide to show there's no huge difference. There's no pro or con to which modality you choose, peritoneal versus hemodialysis. The ideal areas that we want patients' hemoglobin to be is between 10 to 11, and that's this gray area. I did want to present this slide because generally if that hemoglobin starts to run into this blue area, which is less than the dark blue, is less than 9. If you run into hemoglobins of 7s or hemoglobins of 6s, then you will probably encounter more blood transfusions. And again, if your goal is to get a transplant, we want to reduce those because blood transfusions can affect your immune profile. So the ideal level for hemoglobin is in this gray. There's no pro versus con between the modalities of hemodialysis or peritoneal dialysis. Next is calcium. So calcium is important because we know not only for bone health, but also for cardiovascular health. And you can see here the difference. hemodialysis on the left and peritoneal on the right. There's no big difference in which one is better than the next. Phosphorus is the same as calcium, benefits of bone health and vascular health. And again, they're pretty similar when it comes between the modalities. And the ideal range here, we want to see people in the red. So like a 3.5 to 4.5 level on your phosphorus. And this is on phos binders. So I wanted to show this because I don't know if any of you have ever heard of them, but we have iron-based phosphorus binders. That's in this green region. So lanthanum is a much older phos binder. And as you can see, this gray area is starting to phase out because we're tending to use less of that and more of the sevelamer, or Renvela is the other name, which is in the red, and even using the green. So if you're someone who suffers with anemia problems and you take iron pills or you're getting iron infusions, but you also have phosphorus problems, then an iron-based phos binder has been an option over the past 5 or so years. And you can see that the calcium-based ones are just trending off slowly as the iron-based are trending upward. And then this speaks back to the transfusions. So this dark blue area shows people over the course of a decade having one blood transfusion versus the green. You know, we really, really want to avoid multiple transfusions, especially if the goal is ultimately a transplant. So the do's of dialysis versus the don'ts of dialysis, I do want to stress one of the number one do's is to discuss with your nephrologist and to choose your ideal type of dialysis. So peritoneal, home dialysis, there are a variety, right? There's manual and there's a cycler, and then there's nocturnal. There's nocturnal hemo, and then there's in-center hemo, and then there is home hemo. But the best type is going to be what best fits your lifestyle, which was already stressed tonight, which is why I'm glad that everyone shared their perspective of the different types of dialysis, because you can see all these men, you know, having different lifestyles and different types of modalities suiting them. So it's not our decision as your nephrologist. It should not be our decision as your nephrologist. We can, of course, only advise. Like, for instance, I will say, if I had someone who wanted to do peritoneal, but their existing kidney function was not that great, they possibly would have a hard time keeping a good adequacy. So I would probably advise that they do hemodialysis, but again, it's ultimately, it is your choice. The don'ts: do not wait until your GFR is less than 10% to decide on the type of access you want and the type of dialysis you want. It was stressed earlier, develop a relationship with your staff. Like, they're like your family. You're going to see them, you know, those days, if not monthly, for our home dialysis patients, and maybe even once a week, but you're going to see them thrice weekly if you're on hemodialysis. And some people have to go 4 days a week. Don't believe that you don't have a say in your treatment plan, because you do. Do minimize your excessive weight gain between your sessions. And Tafaro spoke on this earlier, because the more weight gain you come in, you know, to prevent from compounding weight after weight over sessions, we do our best to get that off, but that is stressing you in your heart every time. And we know that there's an ideal goal, there's an ideal range at which that fluid should be pulled off per hour. And if you exceed that, it's just increasing the chances for issues every session. So for that reason, minimize skipping your dialysis before and after the weekends, because, I mean, hey, if you're going to engage in a lot more fluid intake, you could run into that issue. Do consider nocturnal in-center. I have patients who continue to work, and so it's ideal for them to do nocturnal in-center. And do consider fistula first versus a catheter, definitely for long-term duration. So next, I'm going to go into transplant. And so this is just to show about hospitalizations. And I wanted to include this because ideally the ultimate goal is to have everyone transplanted. Lord knows that's my goal. So if you look here, the modality that's most likely to be admitted for hospitalizations are going to be those on hemodialysis, and peritoneal dialysis just a little bit less, but transplant patients have a much better outcome of not having so many hospitalizations. This is, I really wanted to include this because I've seen, only because I may have acquired someone who had no idea they were inactive on the list. So once you get on a transplant list, you should be evaluated at least once a year. You need to make sure you know your status. Am I active? Never assume that you are still active, because you don't want anything to possibly throw you off the list and you're not. So do understand that there are people who are inactive on the transplant list. However, you may potentially be able to fix the problem and get back on the list. And this is about blood type. So blood type versus the wait time. I wanted to include this slide because I do notice that a lot of the kidney warriors, when they're doing a great job at presenting their case on social media and they're saying what their blood type is, I just wanted to present this because just know that there are different wait times based on your blood type. The longest wait time is the blood type B, followed shortly after the blood type O, with the type AB having less time to wait. Now, I will say blood type B is known to be a common blood type of Blacks, and only certain centers do it, but there is a way in which B blood type patients or recipients can receive an A blood type. The procedure is called an A2 to B. Again, only certain procedures perform this. Where I trained, we did do this procedure, and the ultimate goal was to pretty much try and reduce that disparity of African Americans that were on the wait list. But again, it's not done everywhere. And this is just to show what we all know, that we need more living donors, that of our donors, definitely deceased donors outrank what we have for living donors. And that's a whole nother presentation on why. And then lastly, this shows the benefits of getting a living donor kidney. So this graph up here on the top left, the top line is a living donor versus a deceased donor kidney is the blue line at a 1-year survival. They're very similar. The living donor is 97% and the deceased is 93%. But over the course of time, and once you get to 10 years, you see how those lines separate to where the deceased donor drops to almost 50%, whereas the living donor is at 65%. So the other thing we do know is that it is definitely of a greater benefit to receive a living donor kidney. So the do's and don'ts of a transplant, definitely a do is going to be to ask about it before you get to 20%. Why 20%? Because 20% is what they say is the point where you can get put on the transplant list. But I always encourage you to have that discussion prior to that. So if your doctor never brings it up, it needs to be brought up. Can it still be brought up while you're on dialysis? Yes, it can. You can undergo an evaluation for a transplant at any phase of your journey. One of the don'ts, do not think that you don't qualify. Even if you may think something happened years ago, or, oh, my chest aches every once in a while, whatever it is, just try. Never think that you don't qualify. Another do, of course, because I do have a virtual practice, but I also saw the benefit of it, especially during the pandemic, to consider virtual evaluations, which means COVID will not stop this show. You can still have an evaluation for a kidney transplant. And actually in 2021, we transplanted the most kidneys ever in history. So COVID did not stop kidney transplantations. So do not delay your evaluation because of any assumptions. I do strongly encourage vaccinations, and that's mainly because you want to minimize as much as possible any potential changes in your immunity, which goes to the next don't. So decrease your exposure of chances to change your immunity. And do ask for donor support from family, friends, and strangers. Like your live donors, your living donors don't always have to be family. It can be friends and strangers, which is what I love about social media, and that people can share their stories of how they've received their living donors from all over. And if you're listed at one center, I do encourage you to list at least 2 to 3. And lastly, do not assume that you are active. Like, you want to know, you want to have in your hand and know, I am active. So thank you all. Here's a link. We're going to share it somehow, but I created some 5 steps to getting your transplant evaluation process rolling. And so either if you're in the process already and you're not sure what's next, this guide will help you to see what's next. Or if you are hesitant or ready to start, it'll just give you a little layout of what to expect. So that is the end of my presentation.
Thank you so much, Dr. Brookins. Very informative. I had one follow-up question for you, if I may. So how is it that someone can go from being active to inactive without knowing it? How does that happen, and how does someone prevent that?
So if it happens, it's definitely a ball being dropped, because there should be 2 people specifically that should notify you of any changes in your status, and that's going to be your transplant coordinator and your nephrologist. So if ever you surprisingly find out, I'm not active anymore, then the problem lies on either one of them. And I included that because I inherited a patient, and, we had our visit. This was like last year, and we had our visit, and he wanted to speak about the update on his evaluation process. And so when I spoke with the transplant coordinator, it was like, oh no, he has to start all over again. And I'm like, okay, well, was no one gonna tell him that he had to start all over again? Mm-hmm. And it was, of course, so he should have received a letter, not only from the transplant center, so that means 3 people. He should have received a letter from the transplant center, but the nephrologist who was taking care of him prior to me should have notified him of that. So of course, now we have to start this process all over again. Like, imagine just how frustrating it is, but it is possible. It's possible to become inactive and not know it.
That's
Right.
I can't imagine having that happen. So the checks and balances, who's responsible? This is the point where the patient needs to be their own best advocate and step up and be checking and making sure and following up. And that's it. Every single, how are they to do that? Are they supposed to be calling their nephrologist weekly, monthly? Who are they calling, and how often and how frequent should they be following up so this ball isn't dropped?
So generally, you're going to require blood tests anyway, because we're tracking your immunity over time while you're sitting on the wait list. And it's during those visits that you can get an update. You can ask for an update, right? Or you're definitely going to sit down with your nephrologist. And my thing is, if they don't give it to you, you ask them for it. Mm-hmm. But the hard part about all of this, right? This is just so much information, is knowing what to ask, which is why I have that checklist, because then you'll be able to see and say, okay, well, I know they should be doing this next, or they should be asking me this next, or this is what I can anticipate. So the hard part is knowing what to ask, but there are checks and balances. And unfortunately, sometimes things happen. It is rare though, I will say. It doesn't happen a lot.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Dr. Brookins. Oh, please, you were saying?
I said, but one time is one too many.
I agree. I agree. And I think before we move on to Faro, let's open up for questions briefly.
I have a question. Dr. Brookins, you talked about, African Americans being mostly B, and you guys changing it over. How did that process work where you can give a person a via transplant with another blood type?
So what we do, so the A blood type, there's like a subset. There's like an A1 and like an A2, right? And so that's why specifically the procedure is called A2 to B. And so that number, that A2 value, is measured to see, well, what's the percentage of this B blood type that they would have to react to that A2. And remember, and I watched your video. So remember that plasma exchange that you went through? That's the procedure that we do. We do that, and we give big guns immunosuppressants. We do rounds of that. And remember how they were measuring your levels, right? They weren't doing the same thing, but after the procedures, the goal is to see those titers drop. So now when you give that patient who has a B blood type, they're not going to reject the A that's there. And so the goal is to at least allow, some sort of reduction or improvement in the wait list for African Americans.
And thank you for answering that, because I never heard of that. Another question I have for you is, you talked about blood, I forget what it's called, what's it called when you get a blood,
a blood transfusion?
Yeah, blood transfusion. I lost my train of thought. So with the blood transfusions, and you get those, does your antigens go up higher, and that could be the problem because you're getting it from somebody else?
And that's the thing. Before you get blood, you have to get a cross match. But there are still other factors that are within that blood that's foreign to you that could now introduce a new, and it may not harm you, but who's to say that new kidney you're going to get is now probably not going to fare well with, that's like when we have babies, we're introducing new immune cells to our baby. And so again, you're getting blood from someone else. It's potentially introducing some new immune system things to you. And it's not that it will harm you, but it's just, it reduces the chances of you getting a new kidney and not having a problem.
I got you. Okay. Thank you for answering that question. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Tafaro, for all of your excellent questions. Well, I see now that our patient panelists have been coming into the room, into the space. So I'd love to begin to move on to them and respect their time as well. Our patient panel is going to be led by the Kidney Trails team, Anthony and Dwellyn. Welcome back. Is Dwellyn with us? Well, I see Anthony is with us.
Anthony's not going to be able to join us. Real quick, Erica, we're going to take a second break.
Dwellyn's not going to be answering.
With the video. Yeah, Anthony's here. Dwellyn is not. Okay. But we're going to take a real quick second break to show a video.
Hi, everyone. I'm Camille Cook, the family nurse practitioner, the creator, the developer, the chef, and the cook of crack. Well, Creamy Crack, the addictive, all-natural body cream. I have a background in dermatology and cosmetic surgery, and I created a 98% organic and a 2% all-natural body cream in 2011 for both my son and husband. My son, who suffered from the irritating symptoms of eczema, and my husband, who was a 2-time kidney transplant survivor and who was on kidney dialysis for over 10 years. They both suffered from the dry, itchy, scaly, and flaky skin. And as a mom and a wife, and with a background in dermatology as a nurse practitioner, I couldn't stand back and see them suffer any longer. So I got into the kitchen and started cooking crack. Well, Creamy Crack again. the all-natural body cream. It moisturizes, it replenishes, it restores, it heals and protects your largest organ. You got it, your skin. I have been able to make such a difference in the lives of those people who suffer from the irritating symptoms of being on kidney dialysis or who are awaiting a kidney transplant, and also for those who suffer from eczema. Those people or individuals have suffered way too long and tried too many things to help their skin come back to life. I am so honored and grateful for you to try this all-natural body cream. Again, that's going to help you look and feel better with your skin. Creamy Crack can be found on all social media platforms at Creamy Crack Body Cream, or can be purchased at creamycrackbodycream.com. I look forward to serving you, sharing with you, and making an impact in your life. I hope you'll go out and try Creamy Crack, the addictive all-natural body cream. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Cook, for that wonderful commercial. So back to it. Erica was getting a patient panel led by Mr. Anthony Reed, CEO and founder of Kidney Trails. So Erica, go ahead and take it away and into our next segment.
Thank you, PJ. So we're going to get started with our patient panel. We have several patients here that are going to share their stories, and that panel is going to be led by Anthony Reed, as Philip just mentioned. Anthony is a former dialysis patient, now living with a kidney transplant. Anthony knows what it takes to not only live with kidney disease, but to live beyond kidney disease. He has shared his stories and lessons he has learned on a nationwide level. You can explore Anthony's journey or read about the lessons he has experienced that can help your journey on kidneytrails.com. Anthony, welcome to the stage.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Thank you very much. And with that, Anthony is going to be leading our patient panel.
Awesome. I appreciate it. It's good to be here, everyone. And looking forward to a great panel and to have a great conversation with all of the patients that are here with us. How are y'all doing today?
Doing good, doing great. Glad to be here.
Excellent. That's good. Well, we're grateful to be here too. But y'all have each one of y'all have very interesting stories. And I think that's something that the audience would like to hear about. So, if we could, Alex, you want to start out with sharing a little bit about your journey?
I think you're muted.
Who did he say? Did he say me?
No, Alex.
Alex.
Cool. Okay. Can you all hear me now?
Go ahead, Alex.
Thank you. Thank you. So, hey, everybody. My name is Alex Barrios. I reside in Louisville, Kentucky, and I am a one-time kidney transplant recipient. I've worked in the kidney space probably on and off for the last 10 years in a myriad of different ways. But my story is more or less when I was in my 20s, I came home from I was sick one day and thought I was just had the flu or some food poisoning from something I'd eaten. Went to a local doctor's, went to a local local clinic, and saw that my blood pressure was super elevated at like 230 or 180 or something crazy, some crazy number. And they immediately gave me some Norvasc and tried to put me down, in a low light. Thought I was going to have a stroke right there, right then and there. I then was moved after not being able to get the blood pressure down to the emergency room. For 2 days, they ran a boatload of tests. Found out I was only born with one kidney. That one kidney ultimately just had failed. Still at that point, didn't know what caused it to fail. They thought I had glomerulonephritis. So my first go around, I had the opportunity to do home in-center hemodialysis. I did that for about 18 months. So I was one of those kind of patients that kind of crashed into dialysis. So I didn't have a chance, like the doctor was talking about earlier, about being able to warn, to look at the percentage of my GFR. I was probably so far gone that I had to go into dialysis like immediately. So I did the dialysis for 18 months. Was fortunate enough to get a kidney transplant from a lady I went to church with after 18 months. So it lasted for 13 years. So pretty good run, 13 years, I think. And in July of 2020, it decided to finally kind of hit the bit and failed. So I had to go back on. I'm back on dialysis currently. This time around, I did about 6 weeks of in-center hemodialysis, and then talked to my nephrologist and was like, "Let's get ready. Let's do either home hemo or PD." And he said, "You'd be a great candidate for PD." So I've been doing peritoneal dialysis now for almost 2 years. Been a year and a half or so, year and change. And so I've been doing peritoneal dialysis, and I'm looking for a kidney. And I've had 2 bouts of peritonitis in the time I've had my PD. One I think came from COVID. I unfortunately had gotten COVID back in December, and there's been a conversation, some data that's been out there that has said that sometimes people with COVID, the peritonitis can sometimes happen. There was no definitive like decision that it was COVID that caused the peritonitis, but it's likely. At least that's from my dialysis nurse. What else do I have? Like I said, I work in the space, in the kidney space. I've done a lot of education. I've been a patient advocate in the transplant world, working for the University of Kentucky for about 2 years, traveling all over the counties of Kentucky and the regions, talking about transplant, the positive outlook on transplant, helping patients kind of understand what to do with transplantation and how to navigate those waters and kind of be the conduit between the dialysis center and the patient and the transplant center. And that was great work, being able to kind of walk around and talk to patients at all levels, from anywhere. It was mainly adults. There weren't many pediatric, but it was still wonderful to kind of talk to those patients anyways. And kind of my eyes got wide open because there were a lot of patients I talked to in some rural parts of Kentucky who were like, who cared just about wanting to be on dialysis, and that was like their lot in life, and they didn't want to even get a transplant. They could have been in their 30s or 40s, and they just felt comfortable staying on dialysis for the rest of their life, which was discouraging. I currently work for a company called Cricket Health. I work from home. It's a wellness program that's a kidney wellness program that's based out of San Francisco. We talk to patients that are in California and Texas, and help them to kind of look at kidney disease from a preventative aspect, where they get a care team of a nurse, a social worker, a dietitian, or a pharmacist. It's a telephonic and web-based program. And my job as in operations is to talk with them and help them enroll into the program. And of course, share my story with them if they are kidney patients, to kind of let them know the importance and the ideal of working there. I'm glad to be here. Looking forward to having more conversation with everybody about kind of their stories and what we can do to better kind of help people understand dialysis and just all the different modalities. Thank you. And I'm ready to hear everyone else's stories.
Awesome. We appreciate that. And I apologize. It looks like I have a weak signal. But let's move on. Let's talk. Artavarius, is that right? Is that how you pronounce your name?
Artavius.
Artavius. Okay, I apologize.
You're fine.
If you want to share a little bit, that'd be great.
Well, hello, everyone. My name is Artavius VZ. I am here in Memphis, Tennessee, and right now I am a kidney transplant of this year, July 15th, will be 17 years post kidney transplant. I was diagnosed with kidney disease at the age of 3. It was hereditary from my mom with nephritis as well. And I went on dialysis for 18 months at the age of 13. And it was definitely a traumatic experience, as we all know. But for me, I was 13. So definitely going through the stages of puberty and trying to figure out who I am and what I want to do, especially going into high school, was definitely a lot for a teenager. But I went through that. My dad was my living donor, and everything is he's doing great. Everyone is doing well, and I'm super excited, of course, to be here. As of right now, I have a master's degree in media design, and I'm super excited to now work for an organization here in Memphis called the Mid South Transplant Foundation as the digital communications coordinator, which I get to basically do stuff on social media, which I already love to do. So it's fun to be able to share stories and to not only tell my story, but help, advocate for others and to help them share their stories. So that's a little bit about me. I'm sure as we talk more, we will get into the depths of, each other's story.
Yeah, that's like no, it means the patient or the that always love to hear other people's story, and I think it makes everything that tells you so. So, Fred, you want to share a little bit of your experience and how?
Hey, you're breaking up really bad. I can't understand nothing.
So sorry, I'm having the worst issue.
Anthony, you're breaking up quite bad. We can't understand a word you're saying, buddy. So.
Well, while he goes ahead and gets that together, we'll just keep going. Bella Langston, Bella, go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Hi, good evening, everybody. I am Audrey Bella Langston, but more so lovingly known as Bella to most of my friends and family. And thank you so much for having me on this panel. As far as my journey, excuse me, with transplantation, it's pretty in depth, but it's a really cool story. But as Tay said, Artavius, Tay as I call him, I'm going to cut through a lot of that. But basically, currently I reside in Tampa, Florida. However, I am originally from Chicago, Illinois. I am the mother of 2 amazing adult children and grandmother of 2. And I received my transplant March 4th of 2005. So I am coming upon my 17th year as well. And the really cool thing is that the day after that, on the 6th, is my birthday, and I will be celebrating my 60th birthday. And the irony in sharing that is that my journey with kidney disease actually began on the weekend of my birthday. I am a retired Chicago police officer of 21 years. And I was out of town with friends when I suddenly became very, very ill. Now, my children were extremely young at that time. My two kids are like 10 years apart in age, and my daughter was pretty much like 6 months old when I got on the police department. But I was thrusted into a terrible shift when I got on the job, which was midnights. And my body was so not accustomed to those hours. I was a 9 to 5 girl all day long. And so that, between the training that it takes to be an officer, the physical aspect, it was very, very challenging, especially after having just had a baby and all the things that come along with motherhood. But I did it. And, but yeah, I was very busy. My life was very, very busy. And this particular weekend was the weekend of my birthday, like I said. So I was celebrating it in Wisconsin Dells. En route, I was feeling very, very tired. This is when I felt the brunt of it, where I knew something, I came to realize about 24 hours later that there was something wrong. I never got adjusted to working those hours. And I was very athletic, in great physical shape, what I would consider the best shape of my life at that time, after finishing 6.5 months in the training academy. So I thought nothing that I may actually be sick. I just thought I was very tired, because I would get off work and I would go right to Bally's and work out, and go home, and I wouldn't go directly to bed even then, because now I'm wired. I would play with my daughter most of the day. So bottom line, I was going to bed like late, about 6 or 6:30 in the evening, and would have to be at work at 11 p.m. So obviously that's not enough rest, especially for that type of intense career, but this is what I did. And I was feeling lethargic. I was urinating quite frequently, which was very unusual for me, but with a very limited output of urine. I was a little nauseous, but not enough to complain about it. I just felt off. Something just didn't feel right about how, I normally was in my normal state of health. And so I was being encouraged to relax and, eat a little something. You'll feel better. You're just tired. I took 2 bites of food. I couldn't eat anymore. I was so not hungry. And I just felt like I wanted to sleep. However, I wasn't comfortable at that particular time to go to sleep. I felt very restless. I couldn't explain it at the time. I just knew that I had never felt like that before. So at some point I did doze off, but I remember vividly throughout the night, I was up and down going to the bathroom. Same issue, slight urine, but not my normal type of urination. I was getting more nauseous at that point. So by the next morning, I, woke them up and said, hey, something's wrong with me. I'm going to have to go back home. I feel worse than yesterday. I'm sick. So of course, no problem. Pack up everything, get in the car to head back to Chicago, where I was probably about a 3.5 hour drive. And I had to stop at the restroom. This was very consistent. And I say that for a reason, because this is generally oftentimes signs of kidney problems. So I went in the bathroom. I went in with my purse. And I, tried to urinate again. It was more of a pressure. That's what it was, a pressure. But came back out to the car. We leave. And about 10 minutes, someone said to me, where's your purse? And I go, what? Where is your purse? You went in the bathroom with your purse. And I go, I don't know, and I don't care. I just want to be left alone. So that wasn't my normal character. That's agitation now starting to kick in. I had a headache that started to kick in and intensify. So that was like a cue for that person to turn around and go back. And sure enough, there was my purse in the women's bathroom on the side of the vanity with my weapon in it, my duty weapon, and probably about $200 in cash. That's how out of it I had become, which is so not my character. So fast forward, we're about an hour outside of Chicago. I dozed off. I woke up probably about 30 minutes later, and I opened my eyes only to realize that I could not see. I had gone completely blind during that time of that brief sleep. And I told the person driving, and they were like, what? And, I could feel the air. They were doing this thing. How many fingers am I holding up? And I was like, I don't know. I can't see them. And I just felt the gas gun and got to the hospital, and I hear them talking. I can't see anybody, and everybody's grabbing me and, asking me questions. And I was pretty much asked things like, have you taken anything, or no. And they were explaining to them, she's not like that. This is a cop, and, whatever. And so my head by that time was pounding. And I remember the nurse saying, lift out your tongue. I'm going to give you something that's going to take your blood pressure is currently it was like 180 over like about 130. That's why they said I lost my eyesight. It just totally took away my eyesight because the blood pressure was so out of control, which of course is what caused the severe headaches and things. So they started asking me questions about kidney problems in my family, things like that. My grandmother actually died from kidney disease. I watched her through it. I did share that. And so I was admitted. The next day I diagnosed with what's called focal segmental glomerulosclerosis. Yes, that is a very long name, and it took me a while to pronounce it with total ease, but it's short-term medically as FSGS. So all the tests, the biopsy, all these things were done, and the next morning, a nephrologist came in and explained everything to me, and basically just told me, this is what you have. This is not going to get any better, and eventually you're going to be facing a transplant. And we want to put you on some medication right now to help slow the process down. And he started to explain that, and as he's explaining one of these meds, I said, is that medication that blows people up? It's prednisone. And he goes, well, yeah, but it'll get tapered. I said, nope, I'm not taking that. I'm a cop. I cannot be like the blimp. No, I'm not taking it. And so I refused. And I said, tell me what I can do, everything that I should and should not do, and I will do it. So I made a lot of dietary changes in my life. I wasn't a bad eater, but I cut out red meat, beef, pork, never went back to it. Salt, never went back to it. That was 19 years I probably haven't had beef and pork. So I did, with those changes, feel that I slowed down, thank God, with his grace and mercy, the progression of the disease, because it did not start to get worse until about 2004. And everything started coming back. And so at that point, of course, and I was put on the transplant list about a year prior to that. The fortunate thing for me is I had at least 4 potential living donors at that time, unfortunately of which all of them fell through for one reason or another. And at that point, that was when my godson, Roger Reynolds, stepped up and offered to give me a kidney. And it went great. We went in the hospital again. Excuse me, I'm sorry. I did have to go on dialysis. It is important that I share that. I had to do, prior to that, 6 months while he went through his testing process. I chose peritoneal, which I believe we'll talk about some of those things later. And we had our transplant on a Friday, March 4th, 2005, and he went home the next day, that Saturday on the 5th, and I went home the next day on that Sunday, which happened to be my 43rd birthday at that time. The only other thing I'll share is I hit the ground running. To getting involved in organizations. Educating myself I urge everyone to do that. I host my own podcast called Hope for Healing. And I'm with Tampa General Hospital. I guess I'll ask, could somebody mute themselves, please? I'm sorry, I'm getting double sound. I apologize. Thank you so much. I'm with Tampa General Hospital as one of their transplant PFAC members, and also with LifeLink of Florida. So I am very active and very passionate about getting the word out about transplantation, organ donation, and overall health. Thank you for letting me share.
Thank you for that great story, and I'm back. Hopefully my connection's a little bit better than what it was, because I was having trouble. I felt like I was on the Titanic and I just hit the iceberg and I was going down for the last count. But we're back, and that's great. It's good to be here once again.
A lot clearer, yeah.
I've got my mic. I was trying to use my headphones, try to use my phone. It was just, this third strike. I'm not going to strike out. We're going to smash this thing out the park. But talking about, let's bring on our next panelist, Mr. Fred Hill. Dialysis is not your life author and motivator. So, Fred, you want to give a little background about you?
Yeah, I can. Can everybody hear me? Want to make sure I'm good. Can y'all hear me? I'm Fred Hill. Listen, again, I'm excited to be here. Thank you for this opportunity. A little about me. I had polycystic kidney disease. For me, I'm from the background. Love God. I'm throwing it out there right now. Absolutely love God. And for me, everything for me, sports. I was a supervisor at the BMW plant here. Is what all this right here was basically my background. But the thing about for us, I remember my sister. She brought all of us together, brothers and sisters, and this was in the early 2000s. And she said, listen, I need all of y'all to get checked. She said, because, listen, I went to the doctor. She had some issues going on, and they found out she had polycystic kidney disease, and said the only way you can find this out is through ultrasound. So she said, all of you need to go because it's hereditary. And my grandmother had already died from it. And so when I went, I had polycystic kidney disease, just like my sister. Speeded up a little bit. My sister ended up passing away. Had another cousin pass away as well. And so when it became my time with dialysis in 2012, my whole mindset was, okay, my grandmother died, my sister died, my aunt died, my cousin died. So what's going to happen to Fred Hill? In my mind says, listen, you're going to die. You're going to die. So I was full of fear the whole time. And so once I actually, and the crazy thing about this was for me, I didn't have any symptoms. I mean, I stayed in the gym, exercise, all the different things. Now, all of my numbers had. But I did not have any, didn't have no swelling. I was still urinating, feeling good at the time. I wasn't tired, all of these things. And so my doctor was telling me that I was at a place where brain should have been shutting down, in a place to where body should have been septic and all of this, but I wasn't feeling anything going on. So when I went and I had a second opinion, and the other doctor told me, said, you should have been on dialysis. And so I still didn't feel anything. So one day at work, I got dizzy and it wouldn't shake. They stayed dizzy to, it was about maybe 10 minutes. And I couldn't shake it. I couldn't shake it. So dizzy. And so from that point, once I came to myself, I said, listen. So from that, I ended up going on dialysis. And from that point, then I started getting tired. So I started dialysis, and listen, full of fear. And the thing that really changed my life was telling my son, he was 10 at the time, listen, went through the can't do list. You can't do this, we can't, because me and my son, we're still crazy close right now. He's doing football, I'm doing the daddy thing and all this. And so when they told me the things that I couldn't do, I went into a bad depression. I was in a bad place, but something hit me to realize that, listen, although the people who are around you, I can't speak this for everyone else's center, but the center where I was, I just didn't like how no one was living their life. No one was living their life. And I'm like, and I'm falling to the same rut of being on dialysis and being tired, and you're going home, go to sleep, dialysis. I'm on peritoneal now and all this right here. And I said, listen, dialysis is a second chance at life, and you blowing it, man. Dialysis is another chance for you to live out loud, live your life, but you blowing it. You sitting here, look at your wife, look at your children, look at not going on vacation, look at you, man. Get it together. So it came to a place, I said, the only thing that I really knew was exercise. So I started exercising. Ended up having a hernia. I think, I'm sorry. Tafaro talked about that. And so for me, I had to learn how to exercise on my own because nothing was going on in Spartanburg, South Carolina for me. And so I learned how to exercise by learning what not to do. And so I began to change my life and begin to modify my life. And I said, I got to get my life back. And so I started to learn how to live my life while I was on dialysis. And so I thank God that he turned my tragedy into triumph. He turned my test into a testimony. And from that point, I started writing and I'm 15 and so I got my personal trainer certification. I began training people on dialysis, just like Tafaro, man. I'm telling you, and from that point, I went back and I got my certification as a dialysis technician to find out what is it on the other side, so I can train better. I wanted to know what is it on the other side of the chair. And so from that point listen, I come back again. I'm now certified dialysis life counselor. And so it comes to a point from writing the book. God has blessed this book to be used as a tool in the UK, throughout America, Switzerland, New Zealand, Australia, Austria, and it's being used in the Medical Educational Institute, the Kidney Academy. I mean, God is able to turn things around. I'm an advocate. I'm a motivational speaker to let you know, all because you are on dialysis does not mean that your life is over. You can still live, go on vacation. I mean, the sex life back, you can get it. You can get in the gym. I mean, you can live your life. I mean, you really can. I'm a witness. And so that's why I'm here today. I'm excited about life. That's the whole thing there, is to understand dialysis is a second chance at life when you can grasp this thing and understand that it's not a time for us to feel like life is over, because without dialysis, man, we'd be dead. We all would be dead. So looking at, I don't know who's watching this, but I'm telling you, so if you're on dialysis, listen, don't allow that to dampen your spirit to feel that your life is over. Man, I'm so full right now because I want you to understand you can live your life. Go get it. Get up from it's hard work. I'm gonna say it's hard work, but you can. Because I mean, dialysis affects your heart. Listen, when you're on hemo, I mean, it causes your heart to swell. And that is painful. So let me ask you a question. What are you going to do with your life? What are you going to do with your life? Live it. Get your life back. Know that dialysis is not your life. I knew I went over my time, y'all. I'm sorry. But I'm excited. We can live.
Man, preach it, brother. Preach
live,
it, man.
bro.
You have all that energy. Keep it at this time of night. I don't know. It's what, almost 9 o'clock where I am. And preach it, brother. Preach it. Say what you got to say, and you got it right.
Yes.
You got it right. Keep it going.
Awesome story, Fred. Hey, you got me excited, bro. I'm gonna keep it 100. I'm like, yeah. I love
it. Hey, I'm telling you,
I feel like going to work out right now. Like I need to get back in my gym right now.
Right.
Let's get it, man. Get life, man. Enjoy life. Every moment. I look at it, man. You maximize every moment of your life because we at this chance. We got kidneys, guys. Those of us on kidneys, we got kidneys, man. Maximize that time. Don't allow anything, even in the bad. there's something good that you can find out of that to turn everything around. I'm telling you, I'm excited that I'm still alive. I'm excited that, hey, I didn't allow dialysis to take me under, but I use it as a stepping stone to get my life back. Hey, I said like this when I'm training: try and then modify. If you try, it ain't working, modify. Don't give up. Don't give up. Don't give up. Don't give up.
That's right.
Don't give up. All right, I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. I'm done. I'm sorry.
It's all right, man.
Apologize, brother. You don't have to apologize.
We needed that.
Sure.
Don't apologize. That was awesome. Hey, that was beautiful. Thank you.
We all needed that, right? We all needed that. It was great.
Yes. I received it. I received
y'all,
it.
but I'm pretty sure me and Alex probably need to hear. But you definitely don't have to apologize when you in this space, brother. We all been through it or going through it, so definitely no need to apologize, man. We understand where your passion is coming from 100%. We appreciate it for sure. Anthony, go ahead and take it away, sir.
Oh man. And I'm supposed to follow that, but that's okay. We got great questions because I want to follow up with what Fred was talking about and want to ask each and every one of y'all.
Can everybody mute except Anthony?
Yeah,
I want everybody
please mute yourself if
Anthony.
you're not talking to yourself.
Hey, that's better.
Includes,
that's good.
Us three as well.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good. That's good. So to follow up on what Fred was talking about, one of the things that all of us that have been on dialysis or are on dialysis all face certain challenges. So my question to each one of y'all, and you can go around the room. We can start with Alex and just go around like we were going. So, what was the greatest challenge that and what has been the greatest lesson that you've learned?
Okay. I think the greatest challenge of dialysis is for me was learning to accept that this wasn't. It's something Fred mentioned, and I think we all mentioned at one point, like the fear factor. I was the youngest person in my unit by like 30 years. Back when I first did hemo to in-center hemo, and so, I think the lesson I learned was to realize that like, just because I'm around people who are older than me and may have passed away next to me or may have been sickly next to me, I've learned that, this is just a blip on my life, and that it's not that kidney disease isn't necessarily to define me as a whole person, but that really, like, I'm Alex who has a family. I'm Alex who loves baseball and things of that nature, but I happen to have kidney disease, and so I've learned over the years to not let it like kind of define me. That's been hard because it's for a long time. I feel like, I've had to deal with feeling like that. It was a defining like piece of me. Like my kidney disease was just part of me, and like I was a burden to my family, and the depression and all the anxiety that came with that. But what's the second part of the question, Anthony?
What is the greatest lesson that you've learned from that challenge?
So thank you. So, like I said, I think the lesson is to know that this disease is just, again, like I kind of said, like I think for me it's just part of me. It's not something that is defining me completely, and that it's a blip, and that I know that I can get up and kind of move forward and kind of continue to be the light in this world of kidney disease, and know that, like, and stay positive. I don't know if most of you guys here, some of you folks on here know me and my social media presence. And I'm generally a very positive person. I try to kind of be upbeat and try not to think about the negativity things that are going on in the world, and try to kind of be positive. So same with the dialysis. When I was on dialysis, I try to be as positive as I can. But not like fake positive, like I'm genuinely just a positive person who looks at life as a good place. And I know that there are some folks who are like, man, the reality is life sucks. I'm like, no, you can look at it that way, and I respect that, and that's what you feel, but this is how I feel, and we can both agree to disagree. but I'm going to still stay positive because it's better than being negative. I'd rather put out the positive energy vibes than negative energy vibes to people. So I guess I hope I answered your question.
You did, definitely,
Thanks.
and that's a great answer. Great answer, great lessons that you learned from that. So let's keep going around the room. What about you, Artemis? What is the greatest challenge and then the greatest lesson that you've learned?
So first off, shout out to Fred. Man, look, I was trying to keep it together in the beginning. I'm like, okay, we just gonna ease into that thing. But you came out like, I'm like, okay, I guess we ready for that. Okay. So for me, the biggest, and it's kind of like both of them together, the biggest challenge I faced was fitting in. And the biggest lesson I learned was you weren't meant to fit in. So the thing when it comes for me, when I was on dialysis, again, I was diagnosed at 3 and I went on dialysis at 13. So of course, during that time, you can think back during teenage years, I was just getting ready to go into high school. So my thing was I've never been that type of kid that was like the cool kid, and I could make people laugh and we could do all that, but I always wanted to fit in. And when it came to dialysis, I didn't want to share that with my friends because as a teenager, trying to explain kidney disease to a teenager, the only thing they will hear is the disease part and think that it's contagious and they won't want to mess with me no more. So I didn't want to tell them that. So I was trying to, work through that. But learning the thing was trying to fit in. And once I realized that, okay, look, you weren't meant to fit in, and that's okay. It's going to dialysis takes a whole different mindset. And like what Fred was saying, it's like it's a certain mindset you have to have because life sucks. It gets like that. But the thing is, it's your perspective. How are you going to look at it? And for me, I had to learn that, okay, look, this is what it is. We either gonna fight with it or we gonna let it fight us. So for me, my mother, she's also a kidney transplant recipient as well. I think for her it's been 22 years post post transplant. And for her, she gave me the opportunity to, be vulnerable. And she was like my coach. She was like, okay, look, I'm gonna tell you what it is. It's gonna hurt. You're gonna be scared. You ain't gonna like it. You're gonna want to cry. You want to talk about it. You want to do nothing. But look, if you need to go cry, go on over there and cry. Do what you got to do. And then when you finish, you come on back, and we're gonna keep going. And having my mother instilling that in my head produced the person I am today when it comes to me motivating people or inspiring people or empowering people to go for the things that you want to go for, no matter what adversity you may be faced with. And again, trying to fit in. You weren't meant to fit in. Find your lane and you do what you need to do. And as time go on, you will get more in tune with who you are and what you want to do, and the other people will come that support you. So I think for me, like I said, the biggest challenge was to fit in. And the biggest reward that I learned that I wasn't meant to fit in, and that's okay.
Awesome. We appreciate that. I think it's always interesting to learn different perspectives. And I think it helps each and every one of us to have a different perspective on life each and every time. And just wonderful. All right, Bella, what about you? What's the greatest challenges that you faced, or the greatest challenge, one of the greatest challenges, and one of the greatest lessons that you've learned?
So I would say for me, the greatest challenge that I faced with regard to dialysis was initially just the acceptance of it. When the day came to have that experience for the first time, hit me like a ton of bricks to sit down in that chair and know that that 15 gauge was about to go in my arm, and unfortunately got infiltrated by my nurse. And she went in, for those who aren't familiar with that, it's when you go in with the cannulator, and it goes, which is the needle, but goes straight through at my vein, and it caused a bleed in my arm, which was excruciatingly painful. And that was when another nurse asked her, had she introduced to me the possibility of PD, because she felt that it would be much better for me from my lifestyle. And I was like, what is that? Tell me about it. And I could not have agreed more at that time. That was the greatest thing for me. I watched my grandmother sit through dialysis centers doing hemo, and I would visit her often, even when I was on duty. And you know, and all of them in there just looking very sick, very tired. I do so much agree with what Fred said, and the energy that he has brought, you know, to his life during that time, and the energy that that will bring to most of us. But I will say, I think what has to come first is working on a person's mindset. You have to get yourself in that mindset to have that type of optimism. It does not come naturally, unfortunately, for everybody, especially our senior citizens. And oftentimes we can kind of tend to not necessarily forget about them, but they kind of get put on the back burner. And I know, because I watched it steal the life out of my grandmother's spirit, as well as others. And watching her take a hit every time she would come back to dialysis the day after or whatever, and one of her buddies who was in the chair next to her, and she didn't see him, and asked where they were, and they would have to tell my grandmother that that person transitioned. And so though that's a great strategy, but I think that we kind of have to have a little different strategy to keep our seniors motivated. Unfortunately, you know, when their ways, our traditions are emboldened in them, they're not going to view that, and they really do need that love too. So I think that is one thing that I have been saying I'm going to work on trying to devise to be able to get through to seniors who are on dialysis more. But the greatest thing about it is that for me, I have always been, you know, an uplifting person. I have a lot of energy. I consider myself to be a leader by nature. And so I knew that I would get through it, so to speak, as far as the lesson involved. You know, it was like God put on my heart right away, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. This too shall pass. You're going to be fine. And because of my research and learning about it more, I think that is the absolute best thing that anybody can do for themselves, is to educate themselves on it. Now, little did I know at that time that everything that I had gone through would eventually culminate into all the, you know, plethora of things that I'm doing in the industry now, which I absolutely loved. And that's how God uses us. It's not just about us and our healing. And once we're okay, we continue to go forth with our life. It's about helping other people. And that's where the power resides. That's where even possible longevity of these organs reside, because I interviewed the longest African-American who had a kidney, George Hamilton. I interviewed him on my show. 45 years he's had the same kidney. Now, that man is an athlete, just like some of the guys who are athletic have shared. You know, getting our body and mind in sync with each other is straight power. It really is. And that is true. That is what I hope to see more in our people, especially because we do dominate in kidney disease. And also, we need to educate better on organ donation. That is a very sad thing. And this is the arena that I'm in with regard to LifeLink of Florida. And so to close this out, the greatest lessons have been me walking the walk, so that today, now I can talk the talk, and I'm not just, you know, chirping from textbook. I've actually lived it, and I can save other people prayerfully through prevention.
Awesome. Awesome. It was a great answer. Great answer. All right, Fred. What about you? The greatest challenge that you faced, and the greatest lesson that you took from that challenge.
All right, for me, I think the greatest challenge for me, because when I went on dialysis, I was 40 years old, so I'm saying you're still feeling young. And when you walk in, life was slipping away. I think that was I love to laugh. I mean, one thing, I mean, I thought, when I was young, a kid or whatever, I thought I was gonna be a comedian. I mean, I really, really love laughter. I love life. And so I walk in and it seems like life is slipping away. I think for me, that was that was real hard. That was real hard for someone who loves to laugh and someone who loved playing. I mean, it was, what are you gonna do, Fred Hill? What are you gonna do? And it felt like I was trapped, um, because you feel like there's no one in my family who had the polycystic disease made it out. Nobody made it out. And so that's all I saw was death. Um, so that was really hard. Even here doing the dialysis on the peritoneal, nighttime hurting, and I mean, it just felt like you couldn't escape. Um, there was nothing else. Just being lost. I think that's for me. Um, and I remember saying, going to the clinic and you sitting in there, and I'm not saying this judgmental. I hope there's no one takes this as saying judgmental, because I don't think I'm better than anyone. But I remember telling myself, I don't want to look like that. I don't want to look like this person. I don't want to, because everybody looked like life was over. And for me, I'm sitting in here, and I remember when I had to do the hemo, and I'm looking at the people beside me, and I'm like, I don't want to look like this. I don't want to be that person. And I think that was the hardest challenge, because no one, um, y'all excuse me, I'm sorry. Wow, I'm sorry. No one seemed like they wanted anything out of life, and so the people who were around me, they didn't have no answers for me. And my doctors, this was in 2012, and my doctors, no one had been on dialysis, and so they could only give you the medical um, view, and so I didn't have no help. I didn't have nowhere to go. So for me, is when you feel like your life is slipping, how do you grab hold of life? Um, wow, I'm sorry, y'all. I'm trying to get this thing together. Thing like Bella was
It's all
saying,
right, man. It's all right.
thing like Bella was saying, it's the mindset. And if you don't see nobody living, if you don't see nobody living, and you don't see nobody, they don't look like they're winning. And I'm a winner. I'm a winner, but I don't see nobody winning. And at the time, I don't know how to win, because I don't have a coach. I don't have nobody saying, Fred, get in there, stay in there, Fred, do this, get these drills. So when you have the athletic, you don't have that. So I'm at home, and my wife and my son is here. But the reality is they love me, but how do you grasp on to life when life is slipping? Oh, man. Oh, man. And so it took a while. Like I said, I was depressed for a while. I was over a year, until I know in prayer time, and God was showing me, you feel like life is slipping away. But if you really look at it, you're attached to life. Every time you hook up to the catheter, to the PD, you're actually hooking up to life. And so for me, the greatest lesson is learning how to be grateful. Learning how to be grateful. And when I learned that, in the midst of my exchanging, I was saying thank you, because I'm alive. Thank you. And so learning that in the midst of, however, even in the pain, and now I have a kidney, and listen, I've learned how to be grateful in the good and the bad. Why? Because I'm alive to be able to deal with the bad. Because if I'm in the grave, hey, how you gonna? It mean the challenges of life. It still excites me because, hey, man, you are alive to do it. So bills do. Life happens. Whatever, man. But it took a place for me to say, hey, listen, Lord, I thank you. I'm alive. I'm in my right mind.
Yep.
Lord, I
Yep.
thank you. I got health and strength. Lord, I thank you. Hey,
Right.
I don't look like what I've been through. And so for that, life is a place to where I don't take this moment here for granted. I mean, I guess I get that a lot. Like, where do you get this energy from? Man, I'm excited about life. And so when it comes to a place where whomever I'm talking to, whoever I see, I don't take no one on this panel for granted. I don't care if I'm pumping gas, the person beside me, I don't take them for granted because I'm alive to see them. And so when circumstances and those different things come, I think for me, the greatest lesson is to learn to say to be grateful. I mean, I know this is not church, but one of my favorite scriptures is, and we know all things work together to its purpose. So that tells me in every situation, God is able to turn it around for my good. So therefore, be grateful in the good.
That's right.
And in the bad. All right, that's me.
Exactly.
Oh,
Wonderful answer, Fred. Wonderful, and it's okay. Emotions are the window to the soul, and you can see what people are, the passion and the purpose that there is. It's because those of us on this panel are answering our purpose and our calling in life, and it's really shining through each and every one of y'all's answers. So I got a few more questions, and we're just going to make it kind of go through kind of rapid fire questions. So with all the information that you have now, each and every one of y'all, knowing back, if you were back at that start, would you choose the same modality or would you choose a different one?
So I'll go for it next.
Fred, since you're on the screen, you're good.
Fred can go if he wants to. You sure? Okay. So my interaction, my first time with in-center hemo, nobody told me about any modalities. This was now 2006. I was like I said, I crashed into dialysis. I did hemodialysis for the 18 months. But while I was on that dialysis, there was no mention from my nephrologist about PD, home hemo, nocturnal, nothing. Fast forward 13 years later or whatever, when my kidney failed again, now my nephrologist all of a sudden talks to me about all these modalities, all these choices. So it's interesting just what time will do, right? And how much the changes how much there's change in just the dialogue and what the message is. Because the message when I was first doing it was in-center hemo, that's all you got. Boom, you should be doing this until you get a kidney. And then, again, fast forward later, here I am. And now I'm doing PD because one, he told me about it. And I had, at this point, even as a transplant recipient, I knew all my modalities in front of me. I'm a pretty, I think all of us on this panel are pretty savvy to know all the modalities ahead of us. So I knew kind of what was in front of me if I was ever to go back on dialysis, and I knew I wanted to do PD. So I was a big proponent of wanting to do PD. So to answer your question, Anthony, yeah, I would have, changed in the first time around, I would have changed it to PD from the get-go if I had that opportunity. And now with, obviously I would have loved to do, preemptive transplant if I could have, but that just didn't work. So here I am doing PD, and hopefully I'll get a kidney here this year, God willing.
Okay, I guess I go next. I don't know where he
Yeah,
went, but I
just
guess
go
I'll
ahead.
go
Yeah,
next.
yeah, you can go next.
Right. I guess I'll go next. For me, I believe I will stick with the same one I had. I was on hemodialysis. And the reason I believe I would stay on hemo is because from my first time, like I said, then I was a teenager versus now at 32. Um, what I took for granted on dialysis while I was in center was in the beginning of it was being able to talk with the other patients, because I think I'm a big believer in representation and a big believer in leading by example, and showing people that no matter what adversity you may face in life, you can still, be successful in whatever you do. So if that time comes where I had to go back, I will go back on hemo to be able to one show people that I'm still the same person, and to be able to encourage and empower others along their journeys to believe more in themselves, and to just give people grace and show them the different perspective that you can make it through this. And it just takes, for me, I believe it just takes one person to be the example, and to show people that no matter what you go through, you can do it. And I would definitely go back that route to be that blessing, and to show people that it's all right, we can get through this together. So that's a quick answer of what I would do.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
great.
go for it.
Okay, good. Yeah, so it's been a long time for me with that. I just like Tay as well. But I am a person who, again, I'm going to weigh all my options. The great thing about medicine now is that it is evolving so quickly that the innovation is just off the chain. And so they're always coming out with newer and better ways to do things. And again, back then, chemo, I came to realize wasn't for me. I think it was more so because I was traumatized by that infiltration. However, it was more than that. It was more so about, God leading me to PD. Peritoneal was so much better. I came to realize from my lifestyle, it gave me more flexibility. I did the night cycler, so I was doing probably about if I remember correctly, it was the 5-liter bags, and it was about 3 bags of that, 3 bags of those 5-liter bags. So it was actually filtering through my system roughly probably about at least 4 times a night. I remember that very distinctly. Now, I will say that PD is definitely not for everybody. It's not. It's a lot. It involves a lot more strategic discipline with that. And also there's always the risk of acquiring peritonitis, which you definitely don't want to get that. I believe one of the brothers actually shared that he had that. Fortunately, I never got it, but I was very strict on, mask wearing, like if my daughter, again, my son was in college by then, but my daughter was still home with friends coming by, so you could not come in my room. I never stopped working, let me say, when I got diagnosed. I continued to be a police officer. The only time I went into a different status was when it got to be more aggressive as I got closer to the time of needing dialysis. And then they put me in administration, which was great for me and a blessing. It was a blessing to have such a understanding career where they facilitated my need when I needed it. And I was always, grateful for that aspect of the job. And so I would have to I worked days. I got to pick my own shift. I'm a morning girl. I used to go work out early in the morning. So I wanted to be there by 6 a.m. and out by 2. But my lieutenant was so awesome. He knew I was on dialysis at night. He said, I don't want to see you here past 11:30, 11 o'clock, because I know you got a family. And so that was such a blessing for my life, because I was able to get home and facilitate my daughter and her activities and her sports and things in school. But and fix dinner. And I had to be on that machine faithfully every night by 8 p.m. Okay. And once you're on it, they don't like you to disconnect unless it's for an emergency. So fortunately, I had a master bathroom in my bedroom and fridge. Everything was set up for me to be convenient. And I would have to be on that machine for 9 hours a night. And it was while I slept. And it would disconnect faithfully every morning about 5 a.m. And I would have to clean the tube. That was the unsexy part, having the tube protruding from your abdomen all the time, because you have to be really careful with that tube. And so, but I did it. I made it work, and I jumped in the shower and put on my uniform and went to work every single day of that entire 6.5 months. And that was a learning experience. That showed as well for me that I could persevere through that I could get through it. If I could do all of that, I wasn't one to share my story with a lot of people. In fact, most officers didn't know it until I was being discovered by I was being followed by the Discovery Health Channel. But it didn't, unfortunately, manifest because the person that was going to donate at that time backed out, unfortunately. However, I was in one of our largest papers, the Chicago Sun-Times, and that's when most officers found out I was sick. Most of them didn't know, because people tend to want to put a face on sickness, and that is really ridiculous to me, but it's true. So many, actually, I heard, felt I was faking, if you can believe that. Like, who's going to fake a life-threatening illness? But anyway, that was because I kept myself up physically, as I had always done. I kept my spirit up. I never wavered or changed in who I was. Again, because I didn't want the sympathy. I didn't want all the questions. I was totally focused on survival. I was in surviving mode and doing the absolute very best thing that I thought to get me, through the situation. And thank you, God got me through it. So just to answer that, I would have to say, yeah, I probably would do PD again, just because of how convenient it was for my life at that time.
Okay. Awesome. Fred, what about you?
Well, for me, I guess it's simple for me, because number one, I don't like the sight of blood. I don't like blood. I'm gonna say this as someone who loves scary movies. I just don't like seeing my own. And then again, I cannot stand needles. And that big needle that I seen, oh my gosh, I don't know if I could mentally. I think that was my challenge. And so I'm like Bella, I'm grateful that I was led well, I'm gonna put it that way, because my doctor said it's either or, and you need to make a decision. And so we didn't have this sessions right now to kind of talk about the plus, the minuses, the ins, out, goods and bads, which one. So I did choose, because of blood and needles, to go to peritoneal. And I'm grateful because it turned out great for my life. For me, it was, I was able to balance my life, and I was also on the night, what you call it, the big night thing, however, and I did 9 hours as well. And so for me, that was good for me. That was really good for me. And again, my son was young, and so taking him to school and doing all those different things, being a part of life in school and football, basketball, baseball, all this stuff, track, and that was good for me. And I didn't have to have the needles. I guess that's for me. And so for those who are doing the hemo, God bless you. I'm grateful. I think, for me, the peritoneal, I would stay there. I would stay there.
Okay. All right. Awesome. All right. I've got a question. Just uh, one question for each and every one of y'all. Um, if what was what quote helped you through your through what quote has helped you the most, or what book has helped you the most throughout this whole challenge that you faced? Alex, are you still on?
I am. Yeah, I'm still here. I'm just trying to think about it. I mean, that might be my last question before I got to disconnect to connect to my recycler, actually.
That's fine.
I don't know if I have a book or a quote, but I do have some. There's definitely music that really makes me kind of keeps me positive, keeps me going. And it's the band Switchfoot. They have a song called "Meant to Live" that's really kind of is like my anthem as I kind of went through dialysis the first time around, and as I continue to go through dialysis now, that I play throughout the course of my treatment. Sometimes with my headset, as if I can't sleep, which is another thing. With PD, sometimes there's insomnia that comes with it. But anyway, yeah, I would say for me it's music, and it's definitely. Switchfoot and a song "Meant to Live," or "Meant to Breathe," I think is what it's called. But it's a great song. It's been my anthem ever since I started dialysis. I'm gonna hop off here and say thank you guys very much for this opportunity. Hope to look forward to speaking with you guys at any other future venues. Feel free to kind of reach out to me if you'd like. Do social media on Facebook and Twitter at just Alex Barrios. Look me up and we can go from there. But thank you so much for the time, and y'all have a good night.
Thanks,
Appreciate it,
Alex.
Alex.
Appreciate
Thanks for coming on.
All right, good night.
All right. So I guess I'm next, right?
Yes, you are.
Well, someone, I don't know if, I'm sure y'all hear someone's breathing like in the mic. For me, it's that question is a lot for me because as I said before, my thing was being able to fit in, and I struggled a lot with self-esteem and a lot of different mental things that I went through as a child and as a teenager. And I would say the thing that helped me was a dream. And it was a dream where, how you have a dream when you're talking with God. And for me in this dream, it was like, just imagine like you in the airplane and I can see over the clouds. So the dream was just like that. And I couldn't see a physical figure, but I can hear his voice. And during that time in my life, I was very suicidal and depressed. I've been through suicide twice. And at this point, I didn't believe in myself, and I just didn't. It was a lot. For a lot of people who don't understand, dialysis is a lot. And it does a lot to the mental. If you're not, like we've been saying the whole time, you're not into the right headspace or have the right mindset about it, it's, man, get you a coach, get you somebody you can talk to. But in the dream, God told me, always believe in yourself because I know I believe in you. And for me, that was very powerful because I felt like I didn't believe in myself. And even though people were around, I had a great support system, it was different for just me. Because if you don't believe in yourself, how do you expect, others to believe in you? And when I woke up from a dream, I wrote it down. And everywhere I go, I tell my supporters, everybody, always believe in yourself because I know I believe in you. And I'm at a very, very great spot in my life now where I get to mentor teenagers and I get to talk with people. And I even wrote a book, just like Fred. I got my book too, Becoming a Living Testimony. And to be able to share my personal journey and my story of me becoming a living testimony, because I didn't feel like I was one. But through the journey and through the storms of going through life and going through dialysis and going through the different phases of becoming a teenager and experiencing puberty, as we know how that is with all these emotions and everything, that quote really, grounded me and to really shift my perspective into doing things. And I had one of the things when I was on dialysis, my doctor came and told me that my line had blew out. And basically what that means is stop working. So they had to change it to the other side. And during that time I had to do a little praying. And when I tell people, when I talk to God, I talk to him just like one of my homeboys at that time. I was like, okay, look, player, look, we gotta talk. So I made a promise to God. I made a bet with God. And I was like, if you can get me off of here, I promise I would do everything in my power to help somebody else. Because my thing was, I always saw us as far as like African Americans in the units where we're getting dialysis, but I never saw us on TV or in those boardrooms or speaking on our behalf. It was always somebody that was a lot older and who was white. And I was like, I can't relate to that. So I told myself, when I get to that point, I would be that person I wish I had growing up for somebody else. And this became my motto in my life, was to be the person you wish you had growing up for somebody else. So every chance I get to share my story, to empower people to always believe in yourself, no matter the opinions of others, whether it's about your lifestyle, your sexuality, your class, whatever it is, no matter what nobody say about you, as long as you know who you are and you believe in what you want, that's all that matters. As you go through this life and as you become more of who you are and accept who you are and figure out what your purpose is in life, everything would then become full circle, and your support system or your team will come around. And I try every chance I get to empower others, because again, we don't know when our last time is. We don't know. But every time I get a chance to talk with somebody is to always be true and honest with yourself. Transparency is your power, and never shy away from your journey, because your journey is your truth. Even though all of us witness dialysis, every last one of our stories are different. So own your story, figure out the best way to tell it that has the most impact, and always believe in yourself, because I know I believe in you, and I hope that empowers you.
Awesome. Awesome. Awesome answer. All right, Bella, what about you? One of a quote or a book that helped you?
Yeah, I mean, I love, first of all, I love to read. Again, I'm that believer, knowledge is power. I love to journal. And so I have so many favorites. I love poetry, because I used to actually write a little poetry when I was younger. I actually said I wanted to kind of get back into that. But I have to always first give the glory to God for who I am and who I've become, even since being a Christian, which has been now about 8 years. And it's never to say that we don't still have our faults and shortcomings and sin. We're told that in Romans 3:23, we've all sinned and fallen short of God's glory. But it just how he orchestrated my life from the time of my illness, when I was not a Christian. I loved God. However, I wasn't embracing him as Lord and Savior. I hadn't repented and changed my ways so I could see the world through that new set of eyes, unlike I have done now. And from that has come so much more wisdom and grace and just gratitude for not just life, but just being able to know that the greatest thing that I can do to glorify him is to love his people, because he loves the downtrodden. He loves those that are in need. And one thing I learned going through my illness is not everyone has a support base. Not everyone is good at really honing in on surviving. I think I said that earlier, and as we were talking about that when Fred was speaking. So this is where I feel I come in. That's why I'm a part of Tampa General Hospital's Patient Family Advisory Counter, PFAC. That is what we do. I am that voice for the people who don't have that voice. And so one poem that I'm a lover of Maya Angelou. And one poem that stuck with me during the time that I was going through my illness says, "My mission in life is not merely to survive, but to thrive, and to do so with passion, with some compassion, some humor, and some style. And if you don't like something, change it. If you can't change it, change your attitude. It's one of the greatest gifts that you can ever give to yourself, and that is to forgive." I love that, because a little bit of my life and what I was going through, and even what I'm doing now, has all transpired from that poem.
Awesome. I love it. Love it. All right, Fred, what about you?
For me, I couldn't. For me, I didn't. There were no books for me. All the books that I was reading was actually the medical side of saying what's going on with your body, what's going on with dialysis. This is how dialysis works, and that's all I had. But there was nothing to teach you how to live your life out loud. And enjoy your life while you're on dialysis. That's what I was looking for. But what I turned to, this, that, and me, the Bible was my core, which again, Romans 8:28, and we know all things. So for me, I knew that it wasn't good. It didn't feel good, didn't look good, but somehow, some way it was going to work out for my good. But I couldn't sit and twiddle my thumbs to say here, because I believe that God gives you, as Bella was saying, knowledge. God gives you the insight, and but you got to do the work. And so with that, now for me as well, cartoons. Now I'm 50 years old, but I absolutely still love cartoons. I'm saying the Bugs Bunny, the Tom and Jerry, of the Popeyes. I'm talking about the old school to kind of keep me smiling and keep me going. And then, as Bella was saying as well, I journal. And so for me, that was the thing that you have to do, because I said, where do you find life when, ain't nothing around for you to grab onto? So for me, journaling. And so for me, that was, I hope it's okay, but that's the reason why I had to write. I thank God I had to write Dialysis is Not Your Life, Redefining Your Life While on Dialysis. It is available on Amazon.com. Go look for it, please. Is it okay if I do this so y'all can see this? Dialysisisnotyourlife.com, and create the Dialysis Is Not Your Life program at dialysisisnotyourlife.com as well. But the book is available on Amazon to be able to see. So it's not a medical book. Those of you have already read it. It's not a medical book. It kind of talks a little bit, but it's talking about how to live your life while you're on dialysis. Goes through different steps and shows you how to live, and knowing in a place of understanding that life is still here. And it's what you make it. And so it's about you putting in the work. It's not going to be easy, but you can live your life. And so for me, that's the reason to be able, and that's why I'm an advocate. That's why I'm a motivational speaker. That's why I'm training. That's why my whole thing is I want to help somebody to understand that your life is not over. And so for me, that's the excitement. I mean, I'm full of life, and I believe when you grasp that to understand and you still have something to offer. And I think that, as Bella was saying earlier, um, there's no reason for you to. I mean, I think the low self-esteem because again the tube coming out or whatever. But I had to learn how to get my sexy back, and so that was the thing to understand that you still can do some exercises. My kidney is in the front, so I don't have a six pack. But I said, you know what? I don't have to be all over. So I mean, get to a place where you grooming yourself. When you walk in the room, you still turning heads, like what she was saying. You don't have to look like what I mean, but you got to feel it. You got to feel it in your heart. You got to feel it in your soul. You got to understand I'm still worth my weight in gold, even with this tube coming out. I mean, I started going to the beach now. I mean, taking my shirt off. I mean, however it was, I said, I gotta, you gotta learn to love your life. As Octavia said, you don't know when your last moment is, so why not enjoy every moment? So that's how I see it, So that Bible for me and cartoons. Man, I'm telling you, it works. And sports. Oh my God, sports. I'm telling you, sports. You got me. Hey, sports. And so whatever makes you happy. I think that, if poems do it for you, just don't lose your personal interests. So if you like movies, still go to the movies, still live your life. If you, whatever it is, do it in moderation. Get to where you get the strength to do it. However, I don't know. I ain't saying go skydiving or nothing like that. But I'm saying get your life back and enjoy yourself. I mean, you still here living. I mean, there it is. I hope I ain't go too far. I hope I said my thing on that. You guys understand. Yeah, that's me.
You're good, Fred. We appreciate that. Well, I want to thank everybody for listening to this patient panel. It's been a joy to be here and an honor. Other than that, that's all I got tonight, Phil, and back to you and Tafaro.
Thanks, Anthony. We appreciate your time. And Fred, Bella, Artavius, Alex, we know you had to jump off. We thank you all for your time, your patience, especially Fred and Alex. They were here from the beginning. They popped in. They wasn't even supposed to, well, not necessarily wasn't supposed, but didn't have to be on yet, man. But so we appreciate you coming in early like that. Definitely. Mr. Cook, Mr. Traylor, you guys have anything you guys want to say?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to the whole panel. Anthony, your questions were remarkable. That was great. Everybody expanded well on their stories and everything. It's amazing when I hear these stories because it makes me reflect on my journey as well. Like, wow, it's kind of crazy because I think like, okay, I wasn't the only one experiencing these things. And that's what hits me hard because I like, okay, because I was insecure with the tube. I had a tube in my stomach, I had a tube out my neck, all kinds of stuff. So when I hear these stories, it just resonates to the core because we all can relate to what was going on because we felt like it was just us on that island. And no, we had others. And I'm glad that, people reached out. I'm glad Fred made a book. Artavius is doing his thing. Alex is doing his thing. Bella, Anthony, Jonathan, we're all moving the needle in the right direction. You know what I'm saying? I started dialysis in '96 and it was bare. You didn't hear anything. Like I said, now, we got people that are supporting us. And if anything goes on, guys, I just want to tell you, you can always call me and I can give you a little support too. But wonderful show. Thank you all for supporting each other. Thank you all for bringing your stories to life, man. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
I'd just like to say it was an honor to be on this panel with you guys and listen to the patient stories. Just incredible. My show is called Hope with Jonathan, but tonight everyone's story was giving me hope. And I'm a newly transplant recipient. I'm a year and a half out, and I heard some of your stories. You guys have been out for quite a while, quite a good time. So you guys are giving me hope that I'll be there one day. And I know God will continue to bless me and carry me through with the great labs that I've been having. I hope to just continue on that great path. And you guys were inspiring. And Mr. Fred Hill, man, I really appreciate your spirit and passion, and Tay Veazey and Bella Langston and you know, of course, Anthony Reed and Dwaylen. You guys are doing great things with Kidney Trails. So everybody's doing their thing, and it's an awesome thing. So God bless you guys, and I appreciate being on the panel with you guys tonight. It was an honor.
Same to you, Jonathan.
So to get out of here, I gotta, just a small, quick video. This is not really a video like that. This is just ways to be able to support and keep up with the people that you saw today. Myself, Mr. Cook, Mr. Traylor, Mr. Reed, Mr. Hill, Mr. Langston, Mr. Veazey, Mr. Real, everybody else, Dr. Brookins and Lindsay, we had on today. So it's just maybe the website or podcast or a number of different things that they may be in charge of, started themselves, that they do to help in the kidney world. So again, we appreciate you watching, for sticking around with us, for being here, all the panelists and presenters. We appreciate your time, your support, and your commitment to what we're doing for the kidney community. We'll definitely be back with something else. This is not where it ends. We just got started. So, we got a lot of to put out there and be informed, be educational. So, again, thank you very much. Have a great night. Have a great weekend.
You guys too. Have a great week.